Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the TGN Endurance Series. We are back yet again for another year of awesome racing. 3 hours yet again is going to be our duration at these events, but we've changed it up slightly this year because it is no longer the Polo Maxi, it is now the Polo Super Cup car. So slightly, well, I'm not too sure if it's better or not. It's a different car, slightly different aero package, but it is still the Polo core module that they run with. My name is Tristan Herbst. I'm joined here today in the commentary box by Michael Donaldson. He'll be alongside me for the next 3 hours as we take you through the TGN Endurance Series. And I just want to throw an apology out there as to the missing stream for round number 1 of the Endurance Series. We experienced a couple of technical difficulties last month. I was going to say last week, but that's how fast life goes. We're already at the next month. But we're officially here. And Mike, how are you feeling for today, man?
How's Justin? I'm feeling great, thanks. And you? A little bit sore from yesterday, but we are looking good. We have an interesting track and car coming here. So as you mentioned, we are running the Polo Super Cups around the Tsukuba International Circuit at Japan. It's a very short but very fast and flowing circuit with very minimal slow corners. I think the only slow corner is up there at the hairpin just before the very long straight. And once again, we've got one long straight at the back of the track, and then we've got a very short run up into turn 1 from the start finish line. However, that final corner is a very long triple apex. So that means if you get a run out there, you will have a monstrous run into turn 1.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a bit of a technical track on our hands, and if you've ever played the iRacing game or the iRacing simulation, you'll know that this is a track that you've recently been introduced to. Tsukuba is very common amongst the rookie class cars, such as the Formula Vs and as well as the Formula, no, not the Formulas, the Mazda MX-5s, also the M2 CS racing cars. So, but we're here today on the Assetto Corsa platform, like we always are at the TGN Racing Simulators events. And round number 2 at Tsukuba is going to be an interesting one. Oh, someone's been taken out there coming onto the back straight onto the start-finish line. But before we progress further, we do have the championship standings as it currently stands from the prior round number 1. So Aratilia Motsogotsela, who is here today, currently sits on pole with 15 points to his name. And obviously he was paired with Kitsumagia last time around, 15 points to his name as well. Carl Williams sits second with 14 points to his name, and Rivaj Lil Chand, also those two in a team, 14 points that side. Jason Wright and Omar Khan, they teamed up last month this time, 13 points on the board for those two. And then we have Gio Sakia and Chad de Jong, both of them also teaming up, 12 points to both of them. And then Mark Kabasa, the final driver in the top 10, 11 points to his name. And then I believe his teammate was just below in 11th as well. But remember with the TGN Endurance Series is that every single month you are switched with another driver. So this is why the points are individualized and not a part of a team championship. So the standings will always be shown in an individual driver perspective. But that's how it currently stands. And I mean, Aratilia being on front, Michael, I mean, that's pretty expectant from what we saw from him in the Pro Series last year.
You're absolutely right, Tristan. Aratilia is one of those drivers that we see consistently performing up in the Endurance Series, and as you mentioned, the Pro Series. I believe he came in a very close second at the Pro Series last season. However, this year he seems to be back, and that consistency followed through into 2026. And we're going to see, as we're going into the second race this season, if he's able to carry that momentum from round 1 and continue running away with the championship lead in this Endurance Series. It's a bit of an interesting setup we have here. As you mentioned, every month the teammates swap, so it's no longer you can have two very fast drivers just deciding to pair together for the chance at just running away and winning the championship. Now, with everyone swapping teammates, it makes things a bit complicated, because you can have a very fast driver paired with a newer sort of fresh kind of driver, someone that's fairly new and just got in. So the way things can change up over the next few months, I mean, it's going to be an interesting fight for the win.
Yeah, absolutely so. And that's one of the nice features of the randomization here at the TGN Endurance Series. And another thing to mention is that the drivers know which car that they're performing in. Obviously, it's the same car across each of the races in the 2026 calendar. But the track is only announced to them on arrival of the actual racing day. So they don't get to practice at home if they've got their own rig. They have to do all forms of practice and preparation here at the TGN centers, either in Johannesburg, Durban, or in Cape Town, depending on where they are. And if you're wanting to ever get involved with this, remember that you can join in the TGN Endurance Series, but obviously you would be 2 rounds down. But, you know, there's a lot of points still up for grabs. It's 12 total months this year, and still another 10 races to come after this one. So if you're wanting to get involved, head down to your local TGN Racing Center, talk to the staff around to get involved with the TGN Endurance Series, or possibly the other Endurance Series as well. As there are not the other Endurance Series, the other racing series. There's the Pro Series, the AM Series, there's a couple of others as well that happen on Saturdays, such as the Super Saturdays and the F1 Sundays. So there's a lot to do here, and I mean, you can ask it from myself and Mike from personal experience. We've been here for quite a long time, and before we hopped on the microphones, trust me, we were down there, we were racers, we paid our fair due, and we had a lot of fun at these centers. So it's a great place to get involved in the hobby if it is something you've been looking at from the outside.
Absolutely, Tristan. TGN has been one of those places where if you just want to get into racing, into sim racing, or you're just a big fan of racing in general, whether it be Formula One, the World Endurance Championship, anything of the sort, TGN has everything that you can imagine when it comes to racing. If you want to do a bit of rallying, all the welcome to hop on the mountain, get on the rigs, and go crazy. And as Tristan mentioned, we've been coming here for a very long time, and it's one of those places where it's great fun to come and just have a group of people that you don't race with often, and everyone just hopping on a track, doing some laps, and having a good time.
Well, that's enough with all our formalities and the admin work. We've gotten the championship standings out the way. Now it's time to dive into the actual racing bit for today. And as you can see, we've just had our qualifying session done and dusted practically while we were having a bit of a chat. 1 minute left on the clock, and currently Chad and Kitso, which is the team rotation for this week for Kitso Magia and Chad, are currently setting up in P number 1 with a 58.648. So under 1 minute lap times here at the Tsukuba Circuit. It is a very, very short circuit, and hence why I say it works great for those rookie series like the Mazda MX-5s or the Formula Ford 1600s. They are cars that tend to be a little bit better suited to go-kart style tracks. Tsukuba is one of those go-kart style tracks where it's a much shorter layout, very easy on the driver to actually just manage themselves here. But it is still technical in terms of the actual cornering. And like Michael mentioned, there's a couple of corners that chain very well together. And so if you mess up the first, unfortunately, it leads you to mess up the next. You have to be pretty consistent here, especially in that mid-sector. Corner exits also very important, especially coming out of the hairpin where we currently watch Chad and Kitso coming out of now. And onto that back straight, if you mess up that hairpin, unfortunately, you will have quite a poor runoff down the back straight, and that could lead to a couple of issues with your lap time. Jordan and Jason's also down there. They currently sit with 59.2, which places them in third position for the time being. But qualifying is officially done and dusted here, and we are going to get to racing ever so shortly. We might have a bit of a short intermission. And you'll have to bear with us during the endurance series. It is one of those events that does take a little bit more time in between session breaks, as obviously it's a much longer duration. I mean, we have 3 hours, and so we have to ensure that the drivers are ready, everyone is comfortable and good to go, because 3 hours is a long time to try and get a car positioned in the correct place. Aretile has paired up with Ethan McDougall this time around, so interesting pair up there. 2 pretty fast drivers. Obviously, Ethan not getting that much time in the seat. I'm not too sure which Ethan, though, because I see Van has also paired up with an Ethan, so maybe there's another Ethan down there on the floor. We'll have to wait and see as we get into the next couple of sessions. But for the time being, qualifying has indeed hit overtime, and it is still Chad and Kitso who lead this qualifying session.
Yeah, Tristan, as everyone's coming up to finish up their laps, we are seeing the times coming down drastically. I mean, when qualifying started, we're seeing times hovering around the 1 minute, but we've seen Chad and Kitso breaking into that 58-second lap time. What an incredible lap on that quaddy setup, followed very closely by Gio and Callum. Now, as we get into the race, we are going to see, as the fuel load is higher and the tyre wear has greater effect over the course of a stint, we're going to see how those lap times come down and how some of the drivers manage that fuel load as well as manage that tyre wear, because I believe the tyre wear is on 2 times, so it's going to be wearing twice as fast. So now over the course of a stint, some of the drivers who take it easy at the start of their stints are going to have a lot more tyre left to race with at the end, while everyone else is coming off a very heavy load.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. I don't know if 2 times is the exact figure, but I do definitely know that the tyre wear has been set to a higher multiplication factor, and that's just to make the racing a bit more interesting. The drivers No matter how big the fuel tank is on the Polo Super Cup, I'm unfortunately not too sure how big it is compared to the Polo Maxi. I would assume it's practically the same, as it's the same base car. But even if they are able to hold that fuel level out and keep the car nice and consistent in terms of, under fueling and then trying to drive a bit lighter to make it a couple more laps, unfortunately those tires will begin to wear. And eventually you're going to have to come in before, almost losing the car around this track. And as you've already seen, according to the rest of this track, is that it is a pretty technical track. There's a lot of left and right benders where if you do have a high amount of tire wear, well, there's a high chance you might just see the rear side of the track. It's a good way to see who's behind you. But, yeah, they're not going to be behind you much longer after taking a spin.
Yeah, interesting. We are seeing the cars lining up on the grid here. We have about 1 minute 50 seconds to the start of the race. We are seeing a bit of running around happening here at the start, particularly on TGN 4. Perhaps everyone's just getting comfortable in their setup because, as we know, it's not like each person gets their own rig. Everyone needs to swap in and out. So you kind of need to know how to adjust the seats and everything, because next thing you know, you're a very short person paired with a very tall person. You get in the seat, trying to pull away the car, the pit lane. Meanwhile, you can't reach the pedals because the guy before you is just quite that amount taller. So it seems everyone's just learning the ropes on the rigs at the moment, and we are coming very close to the start. It appears to be a standing start, so we're going to see quite a bit of action going down to turn 1. I have to say, I am very excited to see how things are going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Same for me there. I definitely think this is going to be an interesting race, and we'll have to see where the drivers currently sit. I believe the standings is a little bit odd here, as we currently see Chad and Kitso very far off at the time being. They, according to our stats, they sit second, and Jordan and Jason, unless Jordan and Jason got a great lap in last minute, and we unfortunately just didn't see it. That would have been quite a neat jump up there, but we do officially have 35 seconds before our race goes live. We'll switch you over to the live cams once we are ready to go, and the gantry lights are ready to be deployed. So just waiting a couple more seconds here, but yeah, exactly how Michael says. I think we're in for a very, very good race here today. A nice and short race distance as well, which means we don't spend a lot of time with drivers going around a track for 3 minutes at a time. We're, we're taking things at quite a hard hold here, as we are officially ready to go. We do see the gantry lights already. We've got a couple of gantry lights, it seems, at the top. Not too sure why there's so many, but it doesn't matter. It's still going to show all the drivers as they line up on the start-finish line. And as you can see, the drivers have officially pulled away. 11 cars officially in this race, and it is indeed Chad and Kitso who start this race on the front right-hand side. So just a bit of a leaderboard issue that we were experiencing there. And they've been able to hold it from Jordan and Jason behind. Going through turn number 1 here at Tsukuba. This is where it starts to get technical. Coming through the left and right hander over here. You have to make sure you keep yourself pretty aware and keep your wits to you, because this is where it begins to get technical for these drivers. And one wrong mistake could set you back quite far down this grid. But so far in our 11-car grid, 10-car grid actually, apologies, it's looking like everybody's managed to get through Sector 1 pretty cleanly.
Oh, and I was just about to say, it seems everyone is coming out facing the right way. As you see 2 cars collide, that would appear to be Max and Nick and Ashwin and Anwar just coming a bit under pressure there through turn number 8 and 9 and going into the hairpin, and they appear to have taken out another car with them. But what an incredible start to the first lap, and thankfully this track isn't too long to a point where it's too much of a challenge to catch up. With people fighting on a very short track like this, if you're falling a bit further back behind, with everyone battling up ahead, it's a lot easier to catch up, particularly on a track like this where it's very difficult to overtake. We are seeing quite the battle coming here with Chad and Kitso right behind Jason and Jordan. They're going up the inside of turn number 5, which is a sort of light hairpin, going into a flowing turn 6. I believe it's not even a brake. I believe it's just lifting off the throttle. Cutting a bit of the corner there, Chad and Kitso, on a bit of bumper to bumper, but that is racing. As the saying goes, rubbing is racing, but that appears to be quite excessive, in my opinion. That's more forcing each other off the track. And we are hearing a bit of banter going on downstairs after all of that contact, but I have to say, what a race. I don't believe damage is enabled for this, so I don't think the cars are going to be experiencing any loss of aerodynamic or any performance loss. So yeah, it's just some hard racing going out there for the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, hard racing is a bit of an understatement, Mike. I'm not going to lie to you. That was quite a lot of argy-bargy there between Jordan and Jason, and I believe it was Chad and Kitso. They were just bouncing off the walls there, and in that process, it's allowed Vanna and Ethan to jump up into third position now, and Chad and Kitso have lost out completely due to that very, very slow Sector 2 that they had with the battling of Jordan and Jason. Bradley and Omar have been able to completely sweep away here. I mean, look at this, up in first position. And look at the distance on the track map currently. It is a good wad of time, 2.4 seconds currently to Vanna and Ethan, who sit in second position. Jordan and Jason now will be on the tail, but they've been tapped, and it's a spin coming through the hairpin section. Fortunately, they've been able to recover it, but Chad and Kitso will move up into third position now, coming onto the final right bender, onto the main straight over here. Lots and lots of action, though, between these top runners. Everyone is extremely hungry here, it seems, for leading this race, but unfortunately that's a 3-second gap. The more that they fight, which is now going side by side, he's been able to catch it. What a great catch, though, from Chad and Kitso, as there's contact through the right-hander, and that could have almost been race over, Michael, because that car was almost about to plant itself into the pit wall.
I mean, Tristan, we're seeing quite the battle here, all the way from third up until sixth. We got Gio and Callum Moore hanging it a bit back at that race, which in my opinion is a very smart plan. Because all that's happening now is we're seeing a lot of contact and a lot of sliding. All of that sliding is doing is just accelerating the tire wear. So these tires are wearing a lot faster, whereas Gio and Callum are just hanging back, letting everyone battle it out, and they're just going to slowly reap the rewards and pick up the places as the race goes on. So towards the end of the stint, we might see Gio and Callum making their way up that field, since their tires will be in a slightly better condition. But we have a very, very close fight. I believe everyone from 2 to 6 are all within 1.5 seconds of each other, trailing just behind. We've got Liam and Eddie. But we have lost a bit of the pack between 8 and 9, and Max and Nick still recovering from that lap 1 contact. But we'll see how things go on over the course of this first stint, because when it comes to qualifying, you aren't allowed to start the race if you're the one that sets your time. So a lot of the teams might have gone away where they let their slower driver qualify to let their faster driver start the race, or vice versa. You put yourself in a really good position and then just try and hold it for as long as you can. So we're going to see a lot of the strategies coming in for the second stint of the race. I'm not entirely sure how long a stint is, usually about 45 minutes to an hour, depends on how these drivers use up their fuel load.
Yeah, exactly. Use up that fuel load and manage those tires to prevent them from wearing any further. And that's the racing that we're currently watching right now. It is still Jordan and Jason down in fourth. Aratila and Ethan have been able to move themselves up to third. I don't know if there's another Ethan here, or maybe there's just a bit of a typo, but it is up. Aratila up in third. But I mean, Michael, we're talking about the fact of drivers picking which driver to start qualifying or the race. Due to the randomness here of drivers being assigned, there could be the possibility of 2 fast drivers in a team, 2 slow drivers in a team. So the strategy in terms of who gets to go for qualifying or who gets to go for the race can be sometimes a little bit of an undisclosed one, and so we'll have to see if a driver qualified up in front and they start dropping off. For example, Chad and Kitso. I have a slight feeling Kitso might have qualified for this one, and Chad is rocking it here for the first stint. And I'll actually look over and try and see. Michael's doing it. I cannot see where Kitso's team currently is, but it's all the way in the back right corner. So from the commentator's booth, we cannot see it, but we'll have a look now to see if it's Kitso or Chad. Okay, so Kitso is currently in the car. Chad hit them up for qualifying, so Chad seems to be really showing his worth here up in fourth position. Kitso just struggling a little bit there with the fighting from Jordan and Jason. They're down in Cape Town, so we can't unfortunately look over our bird's nest over here and have a look where they currently all sit. But still up in front, it is Bradley and Omar. 3.5 seconds of a gap almost now. Now back down to 3 seconds. And this is how it's looking for them. Vanna and Ethan still trailing behind with Aratile as well. Aratile and Ethan just behind them, and this fight is eventually going to scale, because look at how close on the backside Aratile is getting onto the backside of Vanna and Ethan's car. And Chad and Kitso need to watch out to try and potentially gain on the backside of that top 3, because the more that they fight, the more that they can possibly gain here and move up into that podium spot.
You know, Tristan, looking at this track, and it's a track that I've raced myself a number of times in different cars, and I can tell you from experience, it's one of those tracks where it's very difficult to overtake. Like, yes, even though you can see we've got 2 hairpins on the track and a couple of faster corners. However, it's not really the kind of track where you slow down your car very much. It's all very fast corners. You need to carry as much speed as you possibly can through those. So any kind of fighting, any battling you are doing is slowing you down a lot. And I can tell you now, Bradley and Omar are looking back at this battle behind, and they are smiling. They're looking back at me like, cool, now everyone's fighting. We can just sit back, chill, run our race, and just set our lap times in, try and make these tires last as long as they can. So that would be the wise choice for them, is to just try and hold on to those tires, maybe save a bit of fuel, get that extra lap going. And we'll see how things progress, but it's still a very close fight for second place. If you've got Artine and Ethan still holding second, Van and Ethan right behind, and Chad and Kitzel behind them. So with the... Sorry, I was mistaken. That was actually just Artine and Ethan and Van and Ethan, as Tristan said. I'm not entirely sure which Ethan that is. But coming into the final corner, we are seeing that Artine and Ethan taking a slightly wider line. We aren't watching that fight here at the moment. We are now going to see if there's going to be a move coming to turn 1. Not much of a defense put up for Artile and Ethan, and running a bit wide goes Artile. We've got Vanna now right back on his tail. We're going to see a send coming into the hairpin of turn 5. Seems there is a bit too much of a gap. No, it doesn't seem to coming through, so it's just going to be another lap that Vanna's going to have to sit behind and look for that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really good racing though between our second and third drivers over here, and great sportsmanship shown to not try and, lunge up on the inside line and get an overtake done and dusted. So the battle for second and third are pretty much pulling away here from the battle for fourth. So Aratile, Ethan, Vanna and Ethan, those two are completely pulled away now from Jordan and Jason. And so Jordan and Jason currently leading that train for fourth, and you can see it is the longest train currently out on our field. If you look at that track map, it is Jordan and Jason to Chad and Kitzel just behind, Gio and Callum behind them, and then Liam and Eddie just at the backside of that train will sit in 6th position. 7th is Liam and Eddie. They are there, sorry, apologies. And then Ashwin and Anwar are currently getting chased down by Jesse and Francois, just a couple of seconds behind. So these two fighting for the battle for 8th. Unfortunately, Max and Nick are very, very, very far off the pace as it stands. They just come out the hairpin, and they are evidently getting slightly closer they're evidently getting closer to the 10th position spot here, as we see Bradley and Omar are beginning to chase onto 10th position. As you can see, they're just coming through the hairpin, and the likes of Max and Nick, they just come across the checkered flag line now. So unfortunately, with the current speed of the race leaders, we are eventually going to get to the point where those two are going to be caught up by the race leaders. We'll have to watch and see. But for the time being, the most interesting battle has scaled because Jordan and Jason lose the rear out of the hairpin. And this is going to be a great fight because it's going to give Chad and Kitso now a chance to chase. Look at this. Down the back straight they will go. This could potentially be overtaking opportunity. Diving on the inside from Jordan and Jason, they go defensive to try and hold off now from Chad and Kitzel. And on that cockpit camera, oh, it's another tap, and you almost go sideways. Over the outside curve they will go. And Chad and Kitzel move up onto the inside line now, but it's still a whole lot of fighting. They'll hold the outside. Onto the inside they go. Bit more bump and bash there, but for the time being, Jordan and Jason remain in 4th position.
As we can see, this track isn't very wide all throughout its corners and everywhere in between, so we are seeing a lot of argy-bargy going in, not a lot of space being given, as there's yet another tap from Chad and Kitzel defending Jordan and Jason now. And again, coming out of that corner, we're going to see now we are on board with Chad and Kitzel. We're going to see if we can see a send from Jordan coming on the inside here into the hairpin of turn 10. And there was a bit of a send trying to be taken. However, that was more of a suicide run as they go straight into the back of Chad and Kitzel, sending that car into the barriers. And now they've lost a ton of positions, falling down into 7th place. While Jordan and Jason lost 1 place to Liam and Eddie, Gio and Callum have now climbed from there, sitting in 7th behind all of this battle. And we said that they're just going to sit back and let everything unfold. That's exactly what they've done. And now they are leading this train about 8 seconds back from our lead car, but we are seeing that gap slowly coming down over the course of these laps. Aratile and Ethan, that gap has come down, and in fact it has halved. Aratile and Ethan are rapidly gaining on Bradley and Omar. Same with Vanna. They're just dragging each other along straight up to these lead drivers. So we're going to see an interesting fight coming in for first place very shortly.
Yep, indeed we are, and it's great to see because it looked like Bradley and Omar were starting to pull away with this one, but unfortunately that right has been completely denied because Aratile and Ethan are beginning to chase up now and get ever so closer on the backside here, and we'll have to see how that's going to turn out for the drivers up in front. And like you mentioned, Van and Ethan are just in the tow right now. They're just following the lines of Aratile and Ethan. trying to keep it consistent, and hopefully they'll get up to that battle for first position between first, second, and third, and we'll have to see how that goes for them. Gio and Callum, let's hope that they can maybe catch up. Unfortunately, that is a long distance from third and fourth. Between Vanna, Ethan, and Gio and Callum. As you can see it on the track map, it is a wide 9-second gap between the two of them, and so Vanna and Ethan up in front will be trying to hold on here, and on the backside of Aratilia they will go. But Gio and Callum have got a bigger job because Luke is right on the backside now. It's Liam and Eddie. Like we mentioned, both of these two, fourth and fifth, got a great jump after the accident and the bump in the hairpin. And as you can see now, Liam and Eddie right on the backside of Gio and Callum, and they're going to have to watch out for a potential dive from Liam and Eddie coming into the next couple of laps, and Gio and Callum are at the risk here, holding fourth position. Jordan and Jason sitting down. What has happened to Chad and Kitsaw? Down to 9th position they currently go. Was this a potential pit stop made, or did they just drop off the order completely?
It doesn't seem to be a pit stop, as they haven't fallen that far back. However, I just think there might have been a bit more contact with either Ashton and Anwar or Jesse and Francois. As yes, they have dropped quite a massive amount, and we discussed earlier how battling greatly affects the times around a track like this, and we can already see that the front three have a 10-second gap to the train of 4, 5, and 6. So all of that fighting has now just built up this train, and if they continue, that gap's just going to extend, and it's just going to become a fight for the podium at this point. If you want to fight for the win, you're more than welcome to, but either way, if you choose not to, you're at least going to be standing on one step of that podium spot. And we've
yeah, still up in front is Bradley and Omar, and Aratilia and Ethan are starting to catch up now by quite a margin. We mentioned that it got halved from 3 seconds down to 1.5. It's now been halved from 1.5 down to 0.7 seconds. And so Aratilia and Ethan are really starting to find the strides in that Polo Super Cup and getting right on the tail of Bradley and Omar. They thought it was going to be an easy race, but unfortunately not, because here comes second and third being tugged along together, which means that it's going to be a three-way fight here for the win of this race. And this is what we love to see, especially in endurance racing. And I mean, so speaking from experience, especially more Michael, he's done a lot of endurance racing, and I mean, through the middle packs of endurance racing, unfortunately things do start to become a bit boring as the grid does start to dissipate and create loads of gaps between each other. But this is great what we're seeing from the Polo Cups, the Polo Super Cups, and fortunately here at Tsukuba we're not going to see too much of that grid separation, as the track is so small that we'll even get lapped cars, and that'll still provide us some action. But at a track like Nordschleife, you know, a good 6 or 7 minute lap time, we are looking at a lot of grid separation, which unfortunately makes it slightly harder to talk about. But here at Tsukuba, we can almost see every driver if we stand in the middle of the track on a slightly higher portion, which is great. Great stuff. But for the time being, it has been cut down even more. Aratile right on the backside now, almost going on the diving attack now. And Omar and Bradley are really going to have to try and hold this one off.
You know, Omar and Bradley, I think they've realized that they might have used an opportunity to run away. And granted, the battle at the start, forcing Aratilia and Ethan and Vanna and Ethan to sort of be held back, and Bradley and Omar able to run away. They've now experienced firsthand the pace of these two cars right behind them. So they're now going defensive into the hairpin. Bradley and Omar going on the outside. I wonder if these fighting is going to open up the opportunity for Vanna, who has dropped back slightly, I believe, just so you can watch what happens, find out if somebody goes off, he's able to just read the rewards. We are seeing a lot of weaving coming in from Bradley and Omar. That is a bit unethical driving there. But we'll see going down to turn 1, as they are allowed to make one defensive move, and they are side by side going to turn 1. Bradley and Omar holding that inside defensive line. They have an overlap. Aratin and Ethan deciding they're going to back out. However, we see a switchback in the making here, and we are going side by side into the next hairpin here at turn 5. Coming into the right and into the left, they seem to back out Aratin and Ethan again, trying to work that switchback, but it is going to be difficult into this next right-hand, and she cannot fit 2 cars on the exit of this corner just by the sheer amount of speed you have to carry. So we're going to need to see, are they going to make a move into this hairpin or wait for the long straight and make into the final corner? Very late defensive move coming in from Bradley and Omar's car. But coming down the long straight here, Van and Ethan have caught up a slight amount, and Aratin and Ethan getting the slightly slower exit. Bradley and Omar just seem to extend that gap slightly.
Yeah, extending that gap is exactly the play that they want to try and do here, but It's looking pretty difficult here for Bradley and Omar to try and maintain this lead, because look at how aggressive it is coming from behind, with Artilia and Ethan really starting to push on. And Vanna and Ethan, like we mentioned, have started to close in with all the fighting that's happened up in front. And so this three-way battle is essentially in full active swing now, because Bradley and Omar leading it. Just behind is Artilia and Ethan, and then Vanna and Ethan just a bit further as well. And so this is going to be all to play for here for the podium of this race. There is a lot of time left on the clock, as you can see on the top of your screen. 2 hours and 40 minutes still. We've only done 20 minutes of racing here, and the drivers do need to be patient. You do not want to do something here that puts you at the back of the grid, because it is going to be a long climb up to the top. And even though you've got 2 hours and 40 minutes to try and climb back up, don't try and make it a mission to force yourself into that situation. You need to try and stay up on top and do it so without any incidents. But let's have a look, though, at some of the drivers who were fighting up on front. Jordan and Jason have unfortunately dropped all the way down to 6th position now, and that's following their incidents that they had with Chad and Kitzel. They're down to 9th position, and the battle for 4th currently with Liam and Eddie. They've made their way past Gio and Callum, and let's hope that they can keep that stride going. Same for Ashwin and Anwar. They've made it. Unfortunately, they've lost out to Jesse and Francois just up in front. And now Jesse is completely pulling away from Ashwin and Anwar, and hoping to try and gain onto the backside of that battle for 4th position between Liam, Gio, Jordan, and Jesse. It's changing up, though, as now the three-way battle is escalating, because Vanna and Ethan making a dive. Apologies, we didn't get that one on camera. We were looking at a couple of the drivers in the mid-pack, but as we were doing that, the top pack seems to have changed. Vanna and Ethan have taken over the 2nd position spot from Oratile and Ethan, and now Bradley and Omar have got another force pushing on from behind.
Yeah, Ethan, sorry, Tristan, you're absolutely right, man. And Ethan now trying to make that move for the lead. We are seeing a great defense being put up here from Bradley and Omar. Surprisingly enough, no one has been able to take that lead from them, even going off the sheer pace difference from Oratile and Ethan's car over Bradley and Omar. They've been making very calculated defensive moves going into the corners. They know exactly where those moves are going to be coming from, and they've been positioning their car just in a position where they're just struggling to get past. However, we are seeing a very close fight here, and a lot of bumper-to-bumper fighting. We see Bradley and Omar running a bit wide, coming back across contact with Van and Ethan running off the track. That is now a rally car going into the right-hander of turn number 7. Van and Ethan have taken the lead of the race. Oratile and Ethan now on the back of Bradley and Omar's car. We might see a Sen coming into the hairpin here. They go defensive, trying to make a Sen, and even more contact from Bradley and Omar. That was a bit ambitious in my opinion. However, Ethan and Vanna seem to be alright. However, Oratile and Ethan making the slide coming through as there's even more touching with Bradley and Omar. This has been quite the aggressive battle. In fact, not even a battle. This is more a war going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a war for P1, and things have definitely changed. Bradley and Omar, sitting comfortably in P1 for the first couple of laps, have now been completely dropped down to 3rd position. There they go back fighting for 2nd, and they managed to get ahead of Vanna. And so Vanna and Ethan have unfortunately lost out completely. Yeah, they got that 1st position, but after a couple of attack attempts, they've moved completely down into 3rd now. And Oratile and Ethan have been the overall breadwinners here. Up into 1st position, they will begin to run away with this one if they can build that gap. And look at the gap already, Michael. I mean, 1.5 seconds after, what, 3 corners? And I think that's just due to the fighting behind. Bradley and Omar are doing everything they can to keep Vanna and Ethan behind, but it's not enough. On the inside line, they will go onto the back straight, and Vanna and Ethan have been able to recover it yet again. In front, they will move, going into 2nd position now. The question is, will the dive come in? Here it comes. He's looking up the inside. Is there going to be enough space through the final corner? This is very tight racing, and Vanna is going to look for the undercut, and he goes for it. The switch up, a little bit of tapping though, onto the main straight they will go, and Vanna and Ethan have to settle for 3rd position as Bradley and Omar go defensive yet again. What great racing we're seeing as it's up the inside once again for Ethan and Vanna, and they now hold the outside line going into the next 2 corner sequences. Can they do something with this, or will they have to settle for 3rd position? They get overtaken yet again, but the undercut doesn't work as they make contact on the front and rear bumper. Vanna and Ethan now holding the outside line going into the next corner. More bumping, and this is definitely a war, like Michael says. These two not happy with the performances here, and so much going on. Complete off track from Bradley and Omar, but they still go for the dive even after an off track, and they manage to hold 2nd place now. What on earth is going on this track?
I would not be surprised if, just based off all of these, if this were real racing, in all honesty, we might see some windows coming down, some words and hands being thrown through these windows because these cars are so close together. You can probably see just the eyes of the driver next to you, and you can see the frustrations on their face as we've now seen Artile and Ethan running away with what looks to be about a 3 to 4 second gap, just waiting for that to update as coming through. So they've now run away as the battle for second has now ongoing. Yes, the gap is now 3 seconds, and we've also seen Liam and Eddie bring down that 15-second gap now down to 10 seconds to the leader. So we just need to see if Artile and Ethan are going to maintain this momentum and continue running away. But the way Van and Ethan, Bradley and Omar are going on, all of this fight is just allowing that lead car to just run away with it. They're seeing this car slowly drift away as they're now defending its corners, fighting through, constantly bumping each other. I mean, honestly, these cars are most definitely going to have to be scrap metal by the end of this race because there's going to be nothing left of them.
Yeah, I don't know if we're watching Polo Super Cups racing or if this is some demolition derby, because these two in second and third are really starting to work on this like it is some insane championship that they need to get right. And I mean, obviously that is the case. There is a championship at the end and some great prizes up for grabs provided by TGN. And so you know, the drivers are doing absolutely everything that they can to render these results. And again, same thing through turn number 1. So much bumping coming from Van and Ethan. I suppose the Polos are made for this. They are the compact car choice here, and obviously damage has been turned off for this event, and so the drivers taking a little bit more risk. I'm wondering if damage should be enabled. You know, it would make the racing a little bit more realistic and a bit more clean. I feel like the drivers are taking a little bit of advantage of the fact that that Polo is pretty much made of steel and invincible, and that's just what they're doing for the time being. But all that fighting has completely eradicated the battle for first, because Artile and Ethan have done an incredible job at just keeping consistent. They're running away now, 3.8 seconds of a gap. But remember that the strategy is going to come in with the two different drivers in each team. One might be slower, one might be faster. So the Ethan who's paired with Artile might be slightly slower than Artile, and we could again see some change-ups coming on a bit later into this race. But for the time being, 4 seconds of a gap is a massive movement here at a track with the sub 1 minute lap times. Bradley and Omar have fallen off completely now as well. 1.6 seconds of a gap to Vanna and Ethan, and this battle is officially over, done and cleared off. Liam and Eddie will now be one of the main fights around track. That's with Gio and Callum, and then as well 6th and 7th and 8th position. That's with Jordan, Jason, Jesse, Francois, Ashwin and Anwar have also joined in on that battle. So good little bit of fighting a bit further on in the track, and we'll have to see how this is going to turn for the rest of the drivers.
And yeah, Tristan, so I don't know, after these pit stops, I kind of want to see these two trains from 4th down until 8th and the leading train, all of it come together, because just the fighting we're seeing with everyone going on, imagine these trains coming back. We're going to see, like you said, a demolition derby happening. We're going to see a lot of cars going sideways, a lot of cars facing the wrong way. And so far we've seen an interesting race. You are seeing a car in the pit lane. That is Max and Nick already making their pit stop, coming out of the pit lane now. I'm not entirely sure if perhaps these cars are now running out of fuel and they're on the final laps of their stint. We will need to clarify on that shortly. But just based on that, we might see some of the pit stops coming in the next few laps or so. We do also see 9th place Chad and Kitzel really fallen from grace over the course of this first stint. They've fallen way back, not just off the leaders, but off of the entire field. They're sitting in no man's land. They can't even see a car behind or in front of them at the moment. Everything's just blank. It's like they're doing hot laps. And I can tell you from experience, being in this position is it's tough. It has quite it puts quite a mental strain on you, knowing that you're there fighting at the front. You get put in a very hectic fight, you get turned around. Now all of a sudden that affects your mentality for the next 2 hours and 50 minutes, as I believe the time was when that race started. But we're just going to try and clarify now and see what's happening with the racing, see what's going on downstairs.
Yep, and the racing still continues. 2.5 hours to go. Half an hour has officially progressed through, and we'll have to see how that's going to go for the rest of these drivers as they continue to go around the track. But for the time being, Liam and Eddie hold 4th position. Gio and Callum just a bit further behind them, also still trying to keep it nice and strong, but it's now almost a 5-second gap for the win. Currently, Artile and Ethan up in front. Vanna and Ethan just a bit further behind as they hold 2nd position. Bradley and Omar will hold 3rd position. And 4th position for Liam and Eddie a bit further behind as well. We'll have to see how that scales for these drivers. Gio and Callum, Jesse and Francois, Jordan and Jason also trying to progress around the track a bit further. and this is how it's going to work. But just to keep the viewers informed, we will be taking regular breaks in the commentating stint for today. Those breaks will obviously be used to just grab some water, have a bit of a breather, and also go to speak to the drivers who aren't currently racing. It allows us to bring a bit of insight up to the box and talk a bit about the team strategies coming into play. We're also going to try and do a couple of interviews today, like we saw on the ending races, the ending streams that we saw last year for the TGN endurance race. And so we've got all that set up. We'll have to go and fish for a couple of drivers a bit later on. We'll let the race progress a bit so that they've got some things to talk about. But in that case, it is still hard racing nonetheless. The battle for 7th is definitely scaling as Jesse and Francois hold up the lead there in 6th position. 7th and 8th for Jordan and Ashwin.
That top three, RT and Ethan have started to run away, and I have now found out that Van and Ethan are the two staff members. So Van and then staff member Ethan, and then other Ethan is a driver that's fairly new to the endurance series, and now for his, I believe it's actually his first or even second race. I don't believe he competed last season, but now he's seeing his car in the lead and quite a margin at this point. So we're going to need to see some of the pace differences coming in, and that battle for third has also diminished quite a bit. In which, my opinion, they should have done less fighting and more working together, perhaps bump drafting each other down the back straight, just trying to gain a bit more time on Orotile and Ethan, because now a lot of these drivers are being in a position where they aren't fighting as much as we are watching a battle for 6th here. Jordan and Jason just getting past Jesse and Francois. I believe they're trying to fight back, coming into the hairpin. They do send it up the inside. Jordan and Jason see it coming inside to move out of the way slightly. They'd rather try and protect their car and not try and end up facing the wrong way. Coming into the right hand of turn 7, a bit sorry, and we're seeing the car behind Ashwin and Anwar also coming into this fight. Still wheel to wheel. Jordan and Jason on the inside line. They switch back to the outside. Jesse and Francois see that and capitalize on that move, trying to send it up the inside, overrun it a bit, allowing Jordan and Jason to cut back under. Now, Ashwin and Anwar watching this battle unfold. Are they going to try and make a move now as well, or are they going to wait for things to unfold and then see what happens for them?
Yeah, that's all about, the race strategies that these drivers will play. It's all about what are they going to do when it matters the most. And that's how it's continuing to run here for the next short while, as Jordan and Jason down in 6th position. Jer and Callum up in 5th as well. Liam and Eddie holding still strong in 4th. But yeah, these two have been fighting really hard. Jordan and Jason, Jesse and Francois just a bit further behind them. Ashwin and Anwar also behind in 8th position. We'll have to see how those two handle it out on track. And, we don't want this to scale further in this race. Jer and Callum also still up and continuing to go around, but it is still a good push. Jordan and Jason a bit further, and Vanna, Bradley, Omar's up in front. Chad and Kitso down in 9th position. Max and Nick still unfortunately not able to recover this. They're officially a lap down now, as they've been overlapped by Orotile and Ethan, and possibly another driver or two. They've been overtaken by the top 3 right now, and so that's going to be a hard fight to get back up to the top. But we're officially at the half an hour mark of the 2 hour of the second hour. So we're officially going to head to our first break here for today's racing. Don't go anywhere. We're not going to take the streams off. We're also going to put on an auto camera bot to ensure that you get all the views of today's racing. And we'll be back in approximately 15 minutes time. And we are back with the racing. Well, the racing has been going on, but we are officially back with the broadcast. I'm just going to quickly disable our autocam bot before the system begins to disable my ability to change the cameras. That would suck, and that's happened before, but there we go. We're all good and ready to go. Back to the racing, and for the time being, the pit stops are beginning to happen. We had a bit of a chat with the drivers, and it does seem to be a 45-minute stint that the drivers are doing here. Average pit time is 1 minute and 33 seconds. I don't know how true that is. Maybe we had someone sitting. Somehow Max and Nick are in second position. I don't know how. I don't think that they've pitted, or there's just something going on, because I'm seeing lots of +1 laps going on over here. Liam and Eddie down into the pit lane now. Jordan and Anwar, they're all down 1 lap. I'm not too sure how what's going on here, or if something's just gone wrong. But Van and Ethan come into the pit lane now. Max and Nick second position apparently. Artila and Ethan are currently sitting in third. And following them is Bradley and Omar. Liam and Eddie just a bit further behind as well. But 2 hours and 12 minutes left in this race. If we calculate that, that's simple math trying to figure it out. 2 stints is 90 minutes. So we're looking at roughly, so 180 minutes is 3 hours. So 2 stints. So we're looking at a total of 4 stints here today. And that is what the drivers are going to be doing here. So each driver gets about 2 times to drive. So 1.5 hours each, which is why the 3 hour works pretty well. And that's how it's looking so far. But Max and Nick apparently currently sit in P1.
From what I heard when we were downstairs, I was seeing, because I was watching Gio and Callum's pit stop, and I was seeing that the pit stops are incredibly long, because I mean I was sitting there watching Gio's car literally just sitting there sticking fuel in the car, and you just seeing cars flying by. So I think I think the pit stops here are taking a while, and that is why we're seeing quite a mix up in the positions. I think the reason why Max and Nick are in first is I think they might have put earlier, which is now why we're seeing them ahead of the leaders, which is now Bradley and Omar, Aratin and Ethan, and Vanna and Ethan, which are theoretically the top 3. Yeah, as we're seeing Max and Nick coming to the pit lane now, a bit of a aggressive pit entry there, as we can see. But as long as they're getting it slowed down and into the pit lane all right, things are going fine. So we're now seeing the actual race leaders coming through. Bradley and Omar, followed by Aratil and Ethan. They're PDB right behind each other, continuing this battle we saw earlier for first place. Aratil and Ethan getting the run now down into turn number 2, through turn 3 and approaching the hairpin of turn 5. They are too far behind to make any sort of move. However, they do seem to be gaining very quickly on Bradley and Omar. So we're going to see another very aggressive fight coming through. As we were discussing with Ethan earlier, we're seeing a lot of these battles heating up and a bit of past grudges being held onto, and that is why we're seeing such aggressive battling and a lot of bumper to bumper sort of racing at the moment.
Yeah, let's hope that the racing action doesn't go down. I hope that they can get a little bit cleaner, but the action is obviously what drives us here tonight, as I'm wondering where our track map has gone. There she is. We definitely want the track map to be there so we can see where everyone currently sits. So there is currently a battle yet again for first and second. Bradley and Omar have somehow managed to undercut the rest of the field, and they currently sit back up in P1 where they were at the beginning of this. So 9/10 away is Aratilia and Ethan, as they sit just behind in second, and we have confirmed which Ethan is which. Obviously, we mentioned earlier that Van and Ethan are both the staff members, so Ethan McDougall sits in third position, and there is another Ethan, one of the public clients or customers of TGN. He's here today, and he's obviously been randomized and picked with Aratila in second position. So that's how it currently sits for them, and as you can see, they are slowly starting to lose from Bradley and Omar. So I wonder who's jumped in that car now after the pit stops. I believe it is Ethan in the car now for the second position slot of Aratilia and Ethan. I did see Aratilia was in before the pit stops, and now I'm assuming it is going to be, as you can see there on the camera in the bottom left, it is indeed Aratilia standing up. So Aratilia is the driver currently not in the car. We'll probably go down and try and fetch him for an interview if we can. I know we did the interviews last time around, and so it'll be good to get them back and running. But for the time being, down in third position, also Vanna and Ethan, they continue to try and push on. It is now Ethan McDougall in the car. He did just switch out with Vanna, and they're in the biggest sim here today. They're in the full motion rig sim with the 3 43-inch monitors, and also an additional monitor on top for telemetry. So they're in the fully kitted rig currently progressing on to try and chase second. Liam and Eddie bit further behind in 4th. And Jordan and Jason still holding on in 5th position currently. Let's see what they can do as they continue this race. But we are officially about to hit the 2-hour mark in this race. Chad and Kitso a bit further behind as well, and Nathan. Jesse and Francois, unfortunately, all the way back to the grid right now, down in 9th. And there we go. Max and Nick have returned back to their normal position after that additional pit stop. Down to 10th position they go.
You know, just one thing I'm excited to see is we have two very quick drivers currently driving the cars, and one of them being Gio for Gio and Callum, and another one being Kitso for Chad and Kitso. So both of the faster drivers are now in the car, so we're going to see how they start to climb the field, and if they're able to manage to claw back that quite extensive time of about just under 20 seconds to the leader. And we're going to see how quickly they can claw it back. Gio probably in the best position to do so. Chad and Kitso have one car in between them, which they need to fight in order to get through. And have you seen with the fighting today, it has been very aggressive. So it's either going to be you need to make them move very quickly or take your time and continue falling behind. So again, it's going to need to be very strategic in the kind of moves that people are going to be placing. But we are going to see some more battles coming through. We still have that fight with, well, not really a fight anymore. It's more of the leaders now starting to fall back a bit. Everyone just running their laps around the field. Nobody really in extremely close proximity apart from Gio and Callum, Ashwin and Anwar. Their cars for 6 and 7 being very close together. However, I do believe Gio is going to run away with it now, considering he has now gotten past him, and he's just going to continue running over and chasing Jordan and Jason now for P5.
Chasing on for P5 indeed. That is the battle that we were referring to now shortly. And unfortunately for that P5 spot, Jordan and Jason have, it's going to be a long shot for Gio and Callum to try and chase. As you can see, a 4.8 second gap between the two of them. And so that's going to be quite a fighting chance. While I talk though, I'm going to get Michael to head downstairs quickly and try and fetch Mr. Aratile. I can see he's roaming around the field over there. We'll try and go grab him for an interview and just have a chat as to how the team dynamics are going on there. He's obviously paired with a new driver here in today's racing, and so hopefully things are going all well there. But the best way to understand and to know how things are going within a team is to get an interview with a member of the team. And so Aratile, I do see him down on the floor right now. He's busy roaming. He's just gone off the camera of the floor cam, and so Michael has gone downstairs to quickly fetch him so that we can just see how that's going to look for him. And then we still got Ashwin and Anwar currently holding 7th position. They're still with Bradley and Omar with up in front. 2.4 seconds of a gap now between Bradley and Omar, and Aratile and Ethan in 2nd position. I do see them walking back upstairs, and we will evidently prepare for that interview. If you hear any form of microphone drop, we're just moving up one level, and in order to get the interview room cleared up over here. The interview room, by that I mean the commentating booth, which we're currently standing in, simply just converts into an interview room. And so we're just getting that neat and ready here, as I do see Aratile is ready to go. And he's going to be standing alongside us over here, just in the limelight. And there he is. We're going to switch over now, just so that the rest of the stream can see what is going on. But I mean, Aratile, welcome in to the virtual grandstand. And well, not this isn't virtual, this is a real grandstand, and this is the commentary box. Talk us through how the race has gone so far. I mean, obviously you're paired with a new driver, I believe. I don't think Ethan is that familiar with sim racing.
Yeah, I mean, the start was great. We started 6th, then I was able to make my way up until first. It was a bit difficult to get past Bena and Brackley, but I made it through. I managed to put some gap between me and Bena. But yeah, Ethan has been here a couple of times, so he's still trying to get used to the dynamics of the car, how the physics works and all that. So, but he's doing very well. I'm happy with his pace. So it's gonna be up to me when I jump in to see how far I can climb back up. It's gonna be difficult, but I'll try my best.
And I mean, obviously you were here for round number 1 of the endurance series, so first time in the Polo Super Cup. Do you want to try and give our viewers a bit of an understanding what's different between the Super Cup and the Polo Maxi?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if I can get too much into the technicals, but I mean, the dynamics of the car, they handle very similar, but the main difference that I found with this and compared to the previous Mexico that we had was, the table leg on these ones, feels a bit lazy when you get onto the throttle at the start, but then as you go on, the power does come through. Whereas the previous Mexi Cups, you get onto the throttle and after you just go, right? Both are front-wheel drive, so they behave very similar in that sense. But I mean, visually, if you look at both, you'll see that it seems like with more aero, on this Super Cup compared to the Mexi Cup. So, but overall, the handling between the two just feel very similar. But it's when you get onto the power that this one feels a bit lazy, but then it does come through eventually.
And I mean, just talking us through the rest of this race, we've got, I mean, still a good 2 hours left to go here. And so what's the strategy being played between you and Ethan? Who's the Foster driver currently out on field?
Between me and Ethan, or
yes,
the entire group?
No, between you two.
I'm the fastest, so I'm about 1 second faster than him. But I mean, I think with time, I know this track. I've probably done over 500 laps on this track from last year's Hot Lap Challenge with the Mazda MX-5 Cup. So it's a very familiar track, familiar car. So if you combine the two, obviously, it's a big advantage and a benefit for me. So, but I'm the faster driver. So the strategy is he just needs to keep it clean, right? I told him, don't try and get too much time. So don't try and copy exactly what I do. Try and feel the car, understand what the car does, and then from there develop your own driving style. Get to pace, and then feel the car, and then get into the groove. Do your pace, and then I'll handle the rest when I get it to the second stint. But I'm already happy with this pace so far.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Thanks so much for joining us in the box. We'll hopefully see you around still for the rest of the day.
Yeah, thanks guys. Yeah.
Cool. That was Mr. Aratile joining us in the commentary box, and hopefully we'll get a couple more drivers as the rest of the day goes on. We're just going to try and transition back to our normal seating positions here. As you can see, our entire box just gets overridden, which is a neat little quick switch feature. We've got it's a whole teamwork strategy. We've got one that has to run downstairs and grab someone, then the other's got to set it up and ensure it's all ready to go. But back to the racing indeed. It is still Bradley and Omar who lead, and Aratile and Ethan, who we just had a chat to. Mr. Aratile sits in second currently. Van and Ethan, with Ethan and McDougall in the car, currently sitting in third.
Oh, testing. Okay, sorry. Bit of microphone issues there. We're just chatting to Aratile, and we are seeing that Ethan is maintaining that gap to Bradley. I believe that's Omar currently driving the car, because Aratile mentioned he was fighting with Bradley. So Aratile currently fighting the car, Vanna and Ethan finding their way around the back mark of P9, which is Jesse and Francois. And now Ethan's now trying to find his way up back into that lead fight. Hopefully we can see a bit more battles going on. We are seeing Gio, who is now really close to Jordan and Jason. That's going to be an interesting fight to watch. We also have nope, that is not a battle for 8 and 9, unfortunately. That is a lapped car. So the field at the moment is pretty spread, but things are going to catch up very quickly. As you mentioned, a couple of the faster drivers are in the car at the moment, but there's a bit of mismatch in terms of the pace setting, because we now know that Aratile was driving the car, Vanna was driving their car. That is their team's fastest drivers, and I mean those are two very incredible drivers, very experienced too. Aratile racing here at TGN Racing Theatre here in Joburg a lot. I believe he races just about every Wednesday the fun races. As he mentioned, he does a ton of the hot lap races, and he's got a rig at home, which I know I've seen him before in games like Le Mans Ultimate. He does a ton of racing, he's very experienced, and his overall pace definitely comes through everywhere he goes.
Yeah, that is true, and that overall pace really does help with the team dynamics. As he did mention, he is the faster driver in the pick between the two of them, and so that really does come into play of how you want to do the strategy, because the one driver will be the conservationalist, the driver who's there to, in a normal endurance circumstance, there to save the car a bit, save the fuel, save the tires, make sure the car is obviously just getting through the couple of those stints. But obviously here it's a little bit different, because it's a bit difficult to save fuel, because of the Tsukuba track, and also just the car setup and how it's been set up in terms of the session. And then obviously the tires are only going to really last these drivers 45 minutes. So all in all, there isn't really that opportunity to try and save or be a bit of a conservationalist. It's more just for the general pace setting. And that is how we continue running now. But for the rest of it, it looks like someone is in the pit lane, and I'm not too sure who that is. It's Amar and Ashwin, who are sitting out of this race and trying to get a shot of them there. They are nowhere to be found, and so I'm not too sure what's happened to Amar and Ashwin. They are currently out of this race as it currently stands, and don't think they are in the Johannesburg Centre where we're currently broadcasting this from. I think that might be from either Durban or Cape Town. And so very unfortunate to see them not here anymore. We always love to see our drivers finishing off the race, but sometimes things happen, especially if it's physical, a mechanical, in the sense of sim racing, mechanical damage in a real car would obviously be something breaking internally. It kind of works out the same in sim racing where the wheel or the pedals or something in terms of the actual rig decides to stop working, and that just prevents the driver from continuing in their race. But we're officially breaching the 2-hour mark now, and things are going to start to get heated, yeah, because this is where the drivers need to make sure they are 100% turned on. 60 laps have been done, and still another, I would say another good 100 plus laps will need to be done by all of these drivers. And we'll have to see who takes out the kingpin up on top. Bradley and Omar have unfortunately lost that stride that they were enjoying up in front. It was a good 4 to 5 second gap, and unfortunately, Aratiel and Ethan have started catching up. Ethan is finding his stride, and Ethan, the other Ethan, of Van and Ethan, also finding his stride now in third position. And so this is going to turn into a three-way fight yet again. There's a good battle, though, going on for 6. Ashwin and Anwar. Oh, I'm seeing 2 Ashwin and Anwars. There's one here, and there's one here. So Ashwin and Anwar seem to actually still be in this race, which is great to see. So maybe just a duplicate joins somewhere. And so they continue on strong in 6th position with a hard battle from Jordan and Jason.
Yes, just absolutely. I wanted to mention that it seemed to just be a pit stop because there was somebody stopped on the side of the track just before turn 1, and they were there for quite a while. However, they didn't seem to be in the pit lane. The car was more just sort of stuck on the track. Not entirely sure what happened there, but we are seeing the top 3 coming very close together. Both Ethans really picking up the pace, and well, the first Ethan, staff Ethan, is trying to make his way up to fight for that P2, and we are seeing other Ethan with Aratile. Sorry, it's getting a bit confusing with the names. Other Ethan paired with Aratile also finding his way up to fight for P1. So we're going to see that battle coming very close together now. We do see the fight for 6th and 7th, though, coming very close as Ashwin and Anwar currently trying to defend Jordan and Jason. They're sticking to the inside line into the hairpin here of turn 10, and they get put straight into the wall. That is a big hit, and that is going to slow them down a considerable amount. They have lost, I believe that is 2 pace. Chad and Kitzel managed to just fight their way straight through, literally just drove past both cars there, like big thank you, thumbs out the window kind of vibe. And now they're going to have to defend against Jordan and Jason here into turn 1 as they're coming around the final corner. Both cars running a little bit wide over the curb there. Going down to turn 1, I don't believe there's going to be a move. Chad and Kitzel, I believe yes, that is Kitzel driving the car, is now going to continue running away from that battle as he is trying to catch up with Gio and Callum.
Yeah, so lots and lots of switch-ups coming around the track, and let's hope the Chad and Kitzel can catch up to Gio and Callum. That will be a good fight to see for the top 5 as they continue to go around the track. But currently it is the battle for 6th position that is the most highlighted out on track. It is Chad and Kitzel who lead from Jordan and Jason, and then Ashwin and Anwar have obviously dropped off quite a bit, and Max and Nick, the back markers in 10th, have managed to squirm their way into that battle. And so it won't be for position, but they are technically still a car on track that other drivers will have to watch out for. And Max and Nick just not having the greatest of races yet today. And we were talking about Chad and Kitzel's race down there, and it seemed like it was over. But, I mean, Mike, they've climbed back up to 6th position already. So it looks like Kitzel is doing, a good job. And I believe between the two of them, Kitzel is the slightly more experienced driver, a little bit more speed under the belt as well. Kitzel has been a more familiar face here at the TGN Racing Center in Johannesburg. He's been here for the Wednesday races. He's been here for the Pro Series, and now he's obviously here for the TGN Endurance Series yet again for another year. And so he's done a great job because they were down in 9th position, I believe, when they had that unfortunate off-track slightly earlier when Chad was in the car. And now Kitzel has been able to pull it back up to 6th position. Obviously, it's a slightly smaller grid of only 10 cars, but still, the more positions he gains here, the more points they will get on the board, as that is always going to be the overall objective between these drivers, is getting as many points as you can on the board coming towards this end of the race. And Chad and Kitzel doing a great job at doing that, but they are going to have to try and climb and potentially put pressure on Gio and Callum behind. Liam and Eddie also a bit further up in front are trying to find a way to get back onto the podium fight. 15 seconds, though, is a long way to go. And Ethan in the 3rd position slot seems to be finding his stride quite comfortably. And that is going to be a hard fight for the team of Liam and Eddie, as the 2nd position is starting to light up with the 2 Ethans fighting each other.
Absolutely, and like we said, there isn't a whole lot going on right now. The biggest battle on the grid at the moment is for 7th and 8th. The battle for 7th, still once again, Ashwin and Anwar trying to attack Jordan and Jason. We've seen this fight happen once already where we saw both cars coming together and Jordan and Jason going nose first into the wall. Again, thankfully there's no damage on these cars, or else it would have been probably a race-ending crash at the angle they hit that barrier with. But this battle is heating up, and we do know that Ashwin and Anwar can be a bit of an aggressive car to drive with, as we have seen some overambitious moves from just about all the drivers today. It's been quite the eventful day. Ashwin and Anwar do have Max and Nick behind them at the moment. I believe, however, that is a couple laps down, so hopefully they won't interfere too much. Getting awfully close there. I mean, you're probably sniffing the exhaust. But we're seeing things heating up. Van and Ethan now within 1 second of Ethan number 2. And we're going to see how this battle heats up. Coming around the final corner, now going to move into turn 1. Ethan going for a slightly longer line, trying to gain a bit more speed into the first corner here. Nothing going to happen at the moment. Still trying to find his way and just get a bit of pace. However, now he's got the slipstream of Ethan number 2. And so every time he goes down the straight or anything of the sort, he's just going to be slowly inching forward, and we're going to see this battle unfold. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, absolutely. This battle is going to continue to progress, and Vanna and Ethan, well, obviously Ethan in that car right now, taking the wider line at turn number 1, and believe it or not, that is fully within the track limits. The entire outside green curb can be fully driven on, even with all 4 tires, and it won't classify as an off-track. It's how it is being set up as Tsukuba, as I think they realized that they made the turn a little bit too sharp and a little bit too fast for the drivers to try and make it, especially in these lower aerodynamic cars. So they've given that off with that runoff on the left. That entire curbing section is legal, so they don't get any penalties from that one. But further behind, though, Gio and Callum are in a bit of a no man's land, and they've got Jesse and Francois behind. Obviously not for position, but just on the physical track currently. Just a bit further behind is that car in 9th position. And still that fight for 6th and 7th position is scaling quite... Oh, well, not 6th. Sorry, Chad and Kitso have completely fooled away now. But for 7th and 8th position, a bit further behind, and Ashwin and Anwar, though, having a massive battle with what looks to be the likes of Max and Nick, as they are trying to recover their race a bit. Yeah, obviously they've dropped down to 10th, but they're still in this race. There's still about 2 hours left to go here. And so Max and Nick are going to be trying their absolute best to try and get up ahead of Ashton and Anwar, but they've got to do it 100% legally, and they have to get past and continue to move up ahead. Otherwise, they will be given the blue flag and will be forced to try and get behind that car yet again. But still up in front, Bradley and Omar are 100% uncontested as it stands. As you can see, 2nd and 3rd place are going to start fighting with each other. That's just going to allow the two drivers up in front of Bradley and Omar to completely pull away from the rest of this grid.
Yeah, Chazan, looking at the lap times here, the top 3 are... Sorry, so the top 3 are currently setting 58 lap times, and the fastest car on the track is Chad and Kitso. Kitso lighting up the timing screens on his last lap. Currently, the fastest lap is sitting with Bradley and Omar. That is Kitso that has his rear end in the barrier. It doesn't seem to be getting moving. I can't tell if that car is stuck or what is happening downstairs. We are having a look now. It would appear they are having some sort of mechanical issue as their pedals are not working. They have returned to the pit lane. That is going to be a very unfortunate end to their race, as we have been seeing Kitso fighting his way through the field, trying to catch up. And yeah, so a very unfortunate end to their race here. That's going to put them a number of laps down. Unfortunately, there's not much we can really do about that from up here.
Yeah, as we see, Chad is looking quite upset down there. He's throwing the hands at us as if we build the computers. Unfortunately, we're just the ones who talk in the microphone. So Chad, the driver who's accompanying Kitso, unfortunately not going to be able to finish this race, or unless they can get back out on the track. But unfortunately, they will not be given their position back. They will have to fight from the backside. And so not looking like the best of days here for Chad and Kitso. It started, obviously, with Chad in the beginning having a couple of off tracks, which just led to the team having to fight from the back, and then a mechanical failure, which obviously I refer to in the sim racing world. And there we see them, Chad and Kitso, have officially disconnected from the server, which is very unfortunate to see. They've definitely had a bit of an issue there. And the reason why we're calling pedal is we did see that the software was open on the screen when we looked down, and it definitely looked like the pedal maps were being changed. So something has gone wrong with those modes of pedals, and something is not being read as of now. There we see that car 1 is yet again being driven. So they've gone for a race, a game restart. Is that going to fix their issue, though? We'll have to see if he's able to pull out, if the accelerator pedal is going to work here, or if Kitso is 100% stuck in the pit lane. We'll have to see. But with an hour and 49 minutes left, we are starting to wrap up that first hour now. And things are going to start to change, because obviously Chad and Kitso have now completely dropped off, and we have changed to a 9-car grid. Max and Nick have also moved back up to 9th position as they get past the drivers who are not currently out on track. Jesse and Francois also trying to pull way ahead, but they are in complete no man's land. My goodness, that is like a 30-second gap up in front and a 20-second gap behind. So they have got the entire track to themselves just to try and set some good lap times.
Yeah, it is very unfortunate to see Chad and Kitso out of the race, but unfortunately that is how racing goes. Even in sim racing, we experience our fair share of mechanical and software failures. It's similar to a real car. A lot of moving parts goes into having the game run and the car move. And so anything could have gone wrong. It is really unfortunate, and I sure hope something can be done to either return their position or return some sort of lost point. As we know, it's not really the driver's fault, but as it stands, we will not know the answer to that for the time being. We are seeing Bradley and Omar still getting along. They've extended that gap again a considerable amount to RT and Ethan. Not entirely sure what's happened there, if the pace is just dropping off. Fatigue really starting to kick in as these drivers are past halfway in their stints. So we are seeing perhaps some of the tyre wear going down. The guys who have been abusing their tyres a little less, starting to pick up the pace a bit more. As it stands, drivers are getting around them. Now there is a bit of a lapped traffic issue going on here for the 2nd and 3rd place cars, which has now brought them awfully close together. So we might see a battle unfolding for 2nd place here at the moment.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find which lapped car that currently is fighting with Arotile up in front, and there they officially let them go by, so I'm not too sure which car that is. We'll see it now on the track map once they stop overlaying over each other. I thought it was Max and Nick, as they're also rocking the pink car, but it is indeed Jordan and Jason, unfortunately, stuck in that combination, and so they're going to have to give those positions up, which is what we just saw them do, and they've lost both at those to Bradley, Omar, which obviously up in front 8 seconds, but that recent loss was Arotile and Ethan, and Vanna and Ethan currently sitting, so both Ethans have been able to continue, but now this is going to open the door because of the back marker being in the way. Look at how close Ethan McDougall has gotten onto the backside of the other Ethan right now, in 3rd position, pushing on strong, trying to get up ahead. This is going to be a good fight to try and push himself even further in the championship standings here, but he's got to get ahead of 2nd position in order to breach further in that podium spot currently. And then the next objective is to try and just set a couple more consistent laps until Vanna gets back in the car, and that will give Vanna the best possible opportunity to chase onto the back of Bradley and Omar, who currently lead this race. And that'll be great to see yet again another fight for the leaders race. Like we mentioned, it is the best when the leaders are fighting because it is completely unknown as to who will win this race, but for the time being, Bradley and Omar leading with that 8-second gap. They are locking in very much so. Someone's gone off into the wall. That's Jordan and Jason. No, it's not. That's Max and Nick, I believe. Not too sure. That's another one of the pink cars. I think it was Max and Nick, as we do see them losing out a bit, but into the side of the barricade wall they go by the haystacks, and that is not going to be a good one. Fortunately, no damage on these cars. Otherwise, that could have been another race-ending accident.
Yeah, and another thing we're going to be seeing here with the battle for 2nd between Ethan McDougall and Ethan 2 is experience is going to play a big part into this. Ethan McDougall is a staff member here at TGN Racing Tent in Johannesburg. He has a lot of experience driving and a lot of experience racing other cars. So in his eyes, or how he feels, the stress might be a lot less for him, whereas the newer Ethan is still fresh to sim racing. RT did mention that he has done it a few times, but you're going to see how that inexperience is going to play a part. Either Ethan's going to get in his head or try and push things a bit too far. We do see contact with Max and Nick, and I believe that other car being the race leader of Bradley and Omar, but then again, not too much affecting them as they are still leading the race with quite the gap.
Yeah, sorry, I was biting my tongue over there. That was looking quite eventful because the back marker is fighting with the race leaders and almost took them out twice. I mean, that would have been terrible if Bradley and Omar got taken out of this race. And bumper bashing indeed between Bradley and Omar and Max and Nick. They won't be too happy about that one because, as you know, when you're leading the race and you get your race win risks like that, not a happy thing at all. Chad and Kitso are officially back out on the track. Seems like they've sorted out their technical issues, but unfortunately, they remain down in the final position of this race. It's funny, though, they're setting much faster times than all the drivers up in front, as they do belong up in front, but after that technical issue and the massive push from Kitso to get 3 positions up, he's now lost all the way down to 10th position. Somehow it says he's 5 positions up. I don't know how to understand how when we only have 11 people in this inside this. So he's definitely not made up any positions. They started up in front, obviously, and so he's lost out a lot of positions in this race. And that is unfortunately how it remains. But Bradley and Omar up in front. Artile and Ethan still holding off second behind. Vanna and Ethan also just a bit further behind as well. And let's hope that the rest of the drivers can continue to keep all the racing action alive and going well.
We're going to stick online watching the battle of the Ethans unfolding here. Ethan McDougall really trying to get on the back and just in or close enough in order to make a move for that second place spot. We are seeing he is in the slipstream here at the moment. However, these cars, I'm not entirely sure if the slipstream makes an awful lot of difference, as we aren't seeing much of a gain coming out of that third place car. However, we're going to see on the exit of this corner how much momentum they can carry and see if they can make a move to turn one. Seems a bit too far back to try and go first. Ethan's just going to have to try and force a mistake out of the newer Ethan as he runs a bit wide, causing him to get a little bit closer. However, it still seems a bit too far to try and make a dive into the hairpin. We're just need to see how this progresses, and what happens is this is the closest battle on track here at the moment. Ethan 2 runs wide in a bit of contact with Ethan McDougall. Ethan McDougall does get past. However, other Ethan is now fighting back. However, runs just not having the momentum to get around the corner. Vanna and Ethan have taken that second place spot. We're going to see how Ethan 2 is going to fight this back to try and reclaim P2.
Yeah, lots of events there in the middle sector. Just running wide there for Arotile and Ethan's team over there. And Ethan McDougall for Vanna and Ethan move up into second position there. Great read, though, from the two of them. They were able to read the off-track from Arotile and Ethan's team very well and moved up on the inside line and converted into... moved up onto the outside line and converted it into the inside for the next corner. And that's obviously put them up into second. Now, the question is the fight. It is the chase of 7.5 seconds up to the lead of this race. Bradley and Omar leading with quite a long stride up ahead. They're in the middle of a bunch of lap traffic, though. That is probably the biggest train that you can be stuck in. It is the battle for 6th position, and that is indeed where they are stuck in right now. Ashman and Anwar lead just up ahead. Gio and Callum not in that battle, so that driver up in front is one of the back markers, but Ashman and Anwar, Jordan and Jason just a bit further behind as well. So a couple of back markers squeezed into that four-way fight, and unfortunately Bradley and Omar find themselves in the middle of it, but they're officially on the inside line now of all the back markers, and they will get the go-ahead to make that final overtake. Hopefully, the other back marker gives it to them. He does not, so the back marker goes too wide here with the two, and I believe that's Chad and Kitso. No, it's not same livery, but not Chad and Kitso indeed. So I'm trying to find who is fighting. Oh, and there's the off-track. Someone's gone off. I knew that was going to happen. I think, yeah, I think Bradley and Omar got a bit upset with that one. Someone else has gone. I'm trying to find which drivers these are. There it is. That's Jesse and Francois who just went off. But who is the other white car that is contesting the leaders up there? It's Ashran and Anwar who is fighting the leaders up there in P1. Very eventful stuff here for the leaders race, and the leaders are having to fight so hard with the back markers just to keep their place.
I'm not entirely sure if that was just the sheer fear of having the race leader behind you, or the race leader just getting incredibly frustrated with the lap traffic, as we saw both lap cars currently holding back the leader, one going off before turn one and the other one smashing the wall inside of turn one. So not entirely sure what happened there. However, it always makes to see quite an interesting fight with the back marks and the race leader trying to make their way through, as with this sort of racing the back markers aren't forced to move out of the way. It's more of a if possible, could you, or just I'm going to hold my line, you're clearly quick enough to try and make your way around me. However, as we mentioned, on a track like this, it can prove to be a bit difficult, as we're seeing the race leaders struggle to get past some of these back markers. But we have seen that gap from Ethan McDougall come down by about 2 seconds, from about 8 seconds to 6 now at the moment. So that battle with the back markers has played a bit of a part, but we're going to see if the pace difference is now enough to claw back a bit more lead before Vanna gets in the car in about 10 minutes or so to make that big run and throw in one mega stint to try and get the car back into the lead of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be a hard push there for Vanna to try and get up. You can see that Ethan McDougall is fighting, yeah, and I see that there's a battle for fourth as well. But Ethan McDougall has reduced that distance to 1 second less. So it was 7 seconds, now down to 6 seconds. There is a fight going out on track, though, and that's currently Liam Minetti just behind the likes of Gio and Callum And this is onto the back straight they will go. And almost going side by side now between the two of them, or almost, but a little bit further behind though is still Liam and Eddie. And I believe it is, if I can peek right here, it is indeed Liam in that car. So we thankfully have the easiest view of Liam because he's positioned right in the line of sight for us from where we're sitting currently. So it is indeed Liam in behind there. I don't know if it's Gio or Callum in the car again. They're two pretty easy ones to see. It is indeed Gio. So Gio currently sits two of the fast drivers. Obviously Liam being a staff member here at TGN, but Gio being a multi-race winner here at TGN. And so he currently holds 4th position. 5th position is coming for the likes of Liam and Eddie. And they are getting closer and closer. And I think that's also just due from, we were down there watching Eddie. And I mean, he was just setting lap after lap, every single lap, the same lap time. Consistency is key in these endurance races. And so Eddie definitely being a bit more of the conservative, I'm not even going to try in English anymore. Eddie definitely being the more conservative driver. There we go. We're speaking normal English again. Definitely being more conservative on the fuel there, and possibly just taking it a little bit lighter to prevent any form of spin-offs there. And as you can see, Liam is pushing this car, trying to get it around there to Gio and Callum. And I think Gio's realized that he's got someone on his tail because he started pulling away now. That gap was about 6/10, but it's extended now to, I believe, over a second. We'll have a short look on that distance, and it is 1.5 seconds now between those two drivers. So now Liam and Eddie have got to work harder to try and get on the backside of 4th.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see if Gio can get this fight into the top 3, as he's not just a multi-race winner, but he is in fact a Pro Series champion, winning the Pro Series at the end of last year. There, I believe the final race being a Kyle Army, managed to claw back the lead of that championship and win it overall. So I'm excited to see if they're able to bring that car back into the fight for the lead. However, we're going to need to see how that unfolds over the course, as we've got 7 minutes before a lot of these cars are going to be flying to the pit lane, and due to the the excessive pit limit time, as we're seeing the first car, Gio and Callum, coming into the pit lane now. Not entirely sure if that's just a new way of getting around the final corner. We're about to find out. No, they are diving into the pit lane for their second pit stop. That is now going to be Gio climbing out and Callum climbing back into the car. So we're going to now have to find out if some of these drivers are going to extend these stints or follow Gio and Callum into the car, as the pace difference between old and new tyres, as we've seen with Kitsaw now getting back on the track and having fresh tyres coming out of the pit lane, the pace difference can be quite extensive.
That would have been funny if that was a new way to explore the final corner, just taking the pit line and ramping over the final curve to potentially shorten that distance. Unfortunately, that would look cool on the stream, but the end of race stewards, I believe the TGN staff go through it to just ensure that everyone's doing everything legally. They would go and sift through, find that incident, and that would be a fat penalty handed to them for using track limits for your advantage. And fortunately, they didn't do that. They definitely did pull into the pit lane. And where did that pull them out? They currently still sit. There they are, still about 1 minute in the pit now. So very, very long pit time to go for filling up. Someone else has just jumped in. That's Ashwin and Anwar, who's just jumped into the pit lane there a bit further behind. You can see a couple of drivers now walking around. Those are those secondary swaps. Getting ready to get back into the car now in the next 5 minutes. That's also will be when our next break goes on, so we can go and explore downstairs, have a bit of a chat with the drivers once again, see how they are feeling. I did just see Vanna walk past us. He's going back to climb into the rig, and so Ethan will be completing his final laps here, keeping that consistency so that Vanna can hop on the car and potentially chase down on Bradley and Omar. I know Vanna and Omar, I think it was Omar in the previous stint, because Ethan was talking to us about it. I think they were quite upset with each other. Lots and lots of excessive moves coming from Omar. And so let's hope we can get a bit of a cleaner fight between the top two after the pit stop.
Well, it can be clean, but I do want to see fighting with the same amount of energy we saw, just less ramming each other, more of some actual racing. However, it has been it was an interesting first hour of this endurance race, and now as you see, the field has spread out quite a lot, and with the pit stops coming in, this is going to mess up the pit order, so it's going to be very difficult to try and determine who is where, as without these pit stops coming in and everyone being all over the place, we're going to need to see where people come out, as some of the drivers are going to be pitting earlier, some of them are going to be pitting later, so tyres need to warm up, and some drivers are going to be faster, some are going to try and go for the undercut, others are going to try and go for the overcut. Not entirely sure which plays out better. I do believe it is undercut, as Bradley and Omar managed to undercut quite the margin for their pit stop, as they are coming into the box now. The race leader And now the lead of the race is going to go over to Ethan McDougall, who's going to be doing his last few laps before Vanna gets in the car. Liam and Eddie, I believe, are also going to stay out. Yes, they have crossed the pit entry. They are staying out for another lap over Bradley and Omar. So towards the end of the race, I'm not entirely sure if they will need to save a bit of fuel. I believe so, considering the hour 30 mark for a 45-minute stint. So we're going to need to see if drivers are able to cut out some laps, or they're going to have to force for another splash and dash towards the end of the race.
Yeah, it's going to be the most important question here, is those final pit stop strategies, as we've seen a couple of drivers coming in at different times. There's been a bit of a general pattern, as Michael mentioned, that 1.5 hour mark is where we have seen most of our drivers coming in. Obviously, Gio and Callum led that charge of the first into the pit stop, and then Ashwin and Anwar followed in, and a couple others. There we see Bradley and Omar, the race leaders, obviously came in, and that's where Vanna and Ethan retook the lead. I did, like I mentioned, saw that. There we go. There's a new way to get in the pit lane. As we see Vanna and Ethan, the two staff members, naughty, as they go into the pit lane now, and Ethan will get back in the car there to allow Vanna to try and chase on to the lead. Bradley and Omar were first into the pit, so they'll definitely come out before Vanna and Ethan do, so they'll reclaim the lead of this race, as they essentially sit in the pit lane for an entire lap. I mean, the pit stop average time is 1.5 minutes. We're looking at about 59-second lap times here from the top runners, so you're losing an entire lap. That's why we saw that, you know, the lap graph on the left-hand side showing all the drivers getting lapped, and that was the confusion there. Don't look at the pit stop timer that just came up on your screen. It is unfortunately false, as Max and Nick definitely have not done one pit stop. I believe they've done 3 already as they continue going around. But 2.5 minutes left to go to the half-an-hour mark, and the race is definitely escalating.
Yeah, we saw Ethan taking a bit of a interesting line into the pit lane there, and I believe that is because he quickly discovered he had a problem with his car, the problem being he does not have enough gas to finish one more lap, so he decided to jump the curb, take a bit of a fast pit entry. Not entirely sure if that's going to be penalized or not, as we're seeing Liam and Eddie taking the correct way to come around, slowing in, coming around the final bend and into the pit lane, coming out of the lead of the race. Bradley and Omar also out, currently riding in P4. Van and Ethan have also completed their stop, so I would believe Bradley and Omar have been overcut by Van and Ethan, by the looks of things. Yeah, Ethan and Van are coming out of the pit lane now, as Bradley and Omar's car only riding the final car. That is a monstrous overcut of at least 12 seconds.
Yeah, that is an absolute overcut that we've just seen over here. And talking about overcuts, Oratila and Ethan have done the same, because there sits Bradley and Omar. They're down in 4th position. Look at the gap, because it is a long shot from Oratila and Vanna. And there you see Vanna and Ethan. Just behind them is Oratila. And so, you know, there's a good amount of opportunities here for the race leaders to change. And there we see Oratila and them. They're going to get past the lapped car now. I believe the number 22 or Z2, I believe it might be. Don't know who that is. That's X2 for Chad and Kitzel. So I don't know who's in that Z2 car, but we'll have to try and find them. I believe it might be one of the drivers running at the back. It might be Jesse and Francois. Indeed it is. There they are. It is the Z2 car as they continue going around track, and they allow Vanna and Ethan to go up in front. Oratile just a bit further behind now. So this is the fight for the lead. It's between these two now. Oratile, I believe, has gotten back in the car. He's taken over from Ethan, and Vanna has taken over from his Ethan. So the Ethans get to go scroll it out on the floor, and their teammates will fight it out on track. And unfortunately for Bradley and Omar, they are not going to be happy with this 12-second undercut that has come from Oratile and Vanna. No, sorry, overcut, right? I think Bradley and Omar came in before, so it's an overcut from the first and second drivers. And unfortunately, Bradley and Omar have sacrificed a lot of time in this race. So that's unfortunate to see. They're going to have to try and scrap it out, and we'll see how they can do that. Liam and Eddie still trying to tail behind in 4th position. Gio Callum also just a bit further behind. But we're officially reached the half-an-hour mark. We're going to head into our second break here for the TGN Endurance Series for round number 2 here at Tsukuba. We'll be back in approximately 15 to 20 minutes. And we're back with the commentary for the remainder of this race. 1 hour left to go. There might be one more break in between before we head to the finals, but for the time being, 1 hour and 10 minutes left to go. Arotile and Ethan lead this by very, very small margins. 5/10 from Van and Ethan just behind. And the two drivers currently in that car is Mr. Arotile Motsakotsele and Vanny Bert just a bit further behind him. Vanna going a bit deep into turn number 1 there. That's increased that gap from 5/10 all the way to 8/10 almost. And they're going to have to fight quite hard for that one. Bradley and Omar, unfortunately, 20 seconds down, Michael. This is quite a bit of a showstopper here for Bradley and Omar. The two drivers who are up in front are unfortunately quite far down on the pack as it stands.
I wonder what's I do wonder what's happened to Bradley and Omar, who's driving that car at the moment, for them to fall so far back, because we were discussing downstairs about what might have happened during their pit stops, because them coming out 12 seconds behind drivers who pit after them is quite the overcut, in all honesty. 12 seconds, particularly at a track like this, is huge. So I do wonder what's happened to them, as they are looking like they're falling further and further back from that leading two. At this stage, it looks like the race is literally just coming down to between Arotile and Ethan and Van and Ethan. So battle of the Ethans is what we're going to be having for the remainder of this race, is what it seems. And third place is going to come down to Liam and Eddie and Bradley and Omar. Giovanni and Callum are also, Callum currently driving that car. They are also aiming for that third podium spot. I mean, first and second seems, even for them, seems a bit out of reach, but they're going to be pushing their hardest. We've got 1 hour and 7 minutes left. So that's 1 hour and 7 minutes of driving. In fact, actually, that is about 107 laps left of this race. I mean, imagine that. We can just work off the time being 1 minute a lap just about. So they're working their hardest to try and get back up through the field. And Chad and Kitsaw, same thing. I believe they were pit on the lead lap. So they are also trying to fight their way through, however, it being a bit more difficult because they were pit on the back end of the lap. So they've still got a lot of work to try and finish through, but they are doing their best. They haven't given up. Yes, it is really unfortunate that they're a bit out, but they're trying their hardest to fight their way back up.
You can tell we're starting to get quiet when Michael thinks that there's 100 minutes in an hour, but about 66 laps left to go here. No, it's all good. We're getting to the leg end of it. We've been sitting here for a while today. Thankfully, we're in super comfy chairs, which is a huge benefit, and we've obviously been getting our steps in down there, having a bit of a chat. Although we didn't have too much of a chat just now. We more went down for a bit of a water break and just a breather. It is 20 past 3 in the afternoon. We are getting towards the end of this with about 1 hour and 6 minutes left to go. And that hour and 6 minutes is still a lot of time for things to change up here. Because as we know, currently the lead of this race is under jeopardy here. Arotile and Ethan is fighting with Vanna and Ethan behind. And it's been like that for the past couple of laps. But the real question is going to be, how can Arotile up in front defend from Vanna? That is going to be the real question, because these two very, very quick drivers, obviously the one a repeated member here at TGN Racing Simulators, and obviously Vanna being the owner of TGN, it is two drivers who have been here quite a lot in terms of actually spending time here and being on the rigs, and it's very, very cool to see them out there racing with each other. So we know that there's two very experienced drivers up in front. We shouldn't see any more bumper bashing. Hopefully we see some pretty clean racing for the remainder of this one. We do officially have the Cape Town cams now on the bottom left-hand side. Apologies about not pulling them through. I forgot that we had them, and we weren't switching between the scenes as much, because this isn't the Pro Series where we have the intermissions. This is kind of just a one-shot straight through. So making sure that the Cape Town cams are on the bottom left. Blocked off a bit of the leaderboard from 11th downwards, because there isn't actually any drivers from 11th and below. It is just the top 10 that we are concerned about. There is 10 cars on today's grid. So we'll see how that goes for the rest of it. But for the time being, Vanna and Ethan are catching up. They keep going late into that corner. I don't know if you've noticed that, Michael, but that is the third time I witnessed Vanna completely outbraking himself coming into turn number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, turn 1 at this track is one of those difficult corners to get right every time. There isn't really a set mark of it. You're kind of just going into it blind every time. And sometimes, well, with racing, as we know, it's very fast. So the slightest miss of your brake mark is going to affect the way you take the corner. And it seems Vanna might be trying to try different routes to try and just gain a bit more on RT and Ethan, finding his groove, finding what works best for him around the corner, finding what is fastest. As that is one thing with racing. I mean, you can do everything perfect, but the slightest change can give you a considerable advantage. So we are seeing the race for the lead. It appears to be the closest battle on track at the moment, as everyone else seems pretty spread. We can see Bradley and Omar still sitting back with an empty track in front of them, like it's like an ocean they're going to have to cross to try and get back into the fight for the top two. Not entirely sure why we see a number of drivers sitting a lap down, 2 laps down at times, even on if that is literally how fast the leaders have been going, that they have lapped a considerable amount of the field. It's only the top 5 that appears to be on the lead lap at the moment, but it's been great so far, and it seems to be good vibes downstairs. Things have calmed down quite a lot, particularly in terms of the aggression and the fighting and everything else. So we're seeing a number of improvements. We were discussing it, and it seems that the driving today has been more on the dirtier side, and a lot of the drivers are looking to improve on that.
Yeah, it seems most of the drivers have been trying to get as many points here today as possible, even if that means not adhering to the normal rules of racing. And fortunately, like Michael says, we've seen a reduced amount of that in the last half of this race. We are 2/3 down, about to go into our final third here, the last 1 hour stretch coming towards the end of this race. And that last hour is technically a sprint in a 3-hour endurance race. It would be classified a normal full race, but after already completing 2/3 of this final hour is going to feel like a miracle to these drivers. It's the last hour they've got to pursue around track. Those pit stop strategies are going to start getting interesting as well, because we should be seeing pits at around the 45-minute mark, and that's where the final drivers will be taking over to come across the checkered flag line, and we'll have to see how that goes for all of them. But currently, Liam and Eddie, drivers I spoke to just now, currently two of the most consistent drivers, I think, out on the field. Both of them setting pretty good lap times, if you have to ask me. I mean, if we have to look at their last lap times, we're looking at 58.8, 58.9 is their best, apologies. But I did see, when I went downstairs, that Eddie also said a 59.1. So it's very, very close, and they have been keeping those consistent lap times rolling, which is why we see them just sitting in 4th position. They haven't sacrificed too much to the point where they're losing out all the way down to 7th or 8th, possibly. Jordan and Jason a bit further down. Again, says they're 7 positions up, but there's only 10 drivers in this running order, so not too sure what's happening over there. Apparently, on my side, it's showing that we have a total driver count here of 24. And as you see, Jesse and Francois apparently 14 positions up. I have no idea why on earth it's showing that. Something is definitely triggered it to think that there is a huge amount of cars up. So in this perspective, Liam and Eddie would have been starting, a large amount of positions back, being 20 positions up. They started 24th, would have been the last place on this grid, but there's only 10 cars here, which is very strange. In any case, though, that is just how the lobby's been set up. We're about to breach that final 1 hour mark, and we'll probably try and do one more interview before we go on, but for the time being, it is still the racing between the two at the top, Van and Ethan, and Aratila and Ethan.
And also, I was talking to Ethan downstairs, and for those of you watching, we're discussing the events that TGN hosts and the amount of racing over the course of a week there is. And I mean, it starts with on a Wednesday, the Wednesday night racing, in which they have 3 time slots for it. Just need a bit of clarity on the times for that. I believe it's 5 to 6. We're having a look at that, but anyway, so Wednesday night racing has 3 races that you can sign up for. It's probably the most popular event that TGN hosts. You got a lot of people coming through, a lot of regulars, and the racing is great fun. A lot of people coming through, some first timers, some people coming through for their first time, and do have the times here. It is 6 to 6:50, 6:50 to 7:40, and 7:40 to 8:30. Those are PM times on a Wednesday afternoon. So no matter what time you finish work, there will be an opportunity for you to come through and race. And it is 200 Rand per person. And if you win it, you get a free slot. So for your next week, you won't have to pay a cent. So that is great incentive to come through to your nearest TGN racing centre, either here in Johannesburg, Cape Town, or Durban, and try and come through.
Yeah, and that's just one of the sessions that Michael's obviously mentioned that TGN runs. Then on Thursday night, which is unfortunately an invitational session, so It's not something that you can just rock up for, but it is indeed the TGN Pro and the TGN Pro Am series, and that runs on bi-weekly, not bi-weekly, I always get confused. It's not 2 times a week, it's once every 2 weeks. So the Pro series runs once every 2 weeks, and so does the Pro Am series runs once every 2 weeks, and those two counter opposite run with each other. Obviously, the Pro series we have the commentating for, the Pro Am series we just have the live stream with the Autobot on, and so that happens on a Thursday. Then Fridays is half price Fridays, so every single session, which is from the orange tier to the blue tier to the red tier. Obviously, blue tier being 185, the orange tier being no, apologies. Looking down. All right, there we go. Got the right colors. Orange is 185 Rand per session. Blue is then 285 Rand per session. And then red is going to be your highest rated sim racing rigs. And those are 385 Rand per session. So do the math. Apologies, it's late in the afternoon. I'm not going to calculate it now for you. But you divide that into 2. And that will be the price you pay on a Friday. And that is all day Friday. Come and get your racing on. If you work at the nighttime, come in the day. If you work in the daytime, come at the night, and you will get your racing action on. Then Saturdays, Super Saturdays. That is GT3s and V8 supercars. We're trying to get a bit more traction on there because who doesn't want to race V8s and supercars? V8 supercars and GT3s, 2 very popular car classes just in terms of their competition. And then obviously Sunday is your F1 Sundays, which correlates to the real F1 calendar that we are currently progressing through. And talking about F1, it's scary to think, but it's the first race coming up in the next Sunday. It is Melbourne, and that is going to be a great race to watch at the Australian Grand Prix. And personally, I'm a huge F1 fan. Obviously, we're watching the Polo Maxi Cups here, but you do not want to miss that. I hope I reminded someone who forgot it was F1. You better make sure you invite all your friends for round number 1. It is going to be an early morning one, though. It is Australia, so a good old 7 a.m. race.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very excited for the F1 season to get underway. Australia is a very interesting track, but I think what we're all looking forward to is, with the Formula One season being a new set of regulations and new cars, obviously these cars are running more of the battery power system. They've taken out things such as DRS, and particularly the running primarily on battery with what they call boost zones throughout the track. And this is going to make for some very interesting racing, and we've all seen the amount of changes that have gone into it, and we're excited to see which team has developed the best car. I've seen a number of posts from the hopeful Tifosi, the Ferrari fans we have out there, thinking their team in red is going to pull back from their mid-2000s runs, trying to pull off the championships. I don't know, me being a Red Bull fan, thinks we see that just about every season. But we're excited to see how things go. And also with the 2 new teams starting, Audi and Cadillac, I'm very excited to see where those guys come through. Maybe we see a repeat of 2009 with Braun GP, and we're going to see what happens.
I'm hoping we see a repeat of 2009. I want to see Hulkenberg on the podium for Australia, or even Bortoleto if he's got the experience in, because Audi is evidently going to be my new favorite team. It is my favorite real-life car brand, so obviously it has to translate over. Unfortunately, Red Bull's not a real car brand. Okay, I can't support it cross-car. I mean, I can go drink their drink, and I suppose I support them that way, but it just doesn't feel the same, Or someone goes off wide again. Can I guess who it is? It is, again, Vanna and Ethan, just running very wide and continuously locking those brakes. That is not going to be good. Coming towards the end of this race, you know that the locking of the brakes means that the tires stop dead in their spot, and that causes a flat spot on the bottom side of the tires. So those tires just wearing even more now in Vanna's car. Now Artile is driving this car very comfortably up in front. I haven't seen him make any errors in the past couple of laps that we've been watching them. It's gotten a bit quiet across the rest of the track. I think Jordan and Jason have come into the pit lane now, and so they're not going to make it to the end of this race. Yeah, so a couple of the drivers boxing. We're looking at a 45-minute lapse, 45-minute stint time. They're coming into the box at 55 minutes. That is an entire 10 minutes. It's an extra 10 laps that they would have to run at a track like this. I don't know if that's going to be the play here. They might have to swap out drivers. An additional time. Imagine swapping out into a car and then driving 9 minutes. That kind of sucks. But unfortunately, that seems to be the strategy that's been played there by Jordan and Jason, and other drivers who will be coming in as well. Ashwin and Anwar have also come in. So a bit of a strange one, but we'll have to see when the rest of the drivers come in. But it should be at that 45-minute mark.
With Chad and Kitzel, it does make sense because they've been thrown into a bit of limbo with their pit stops due to their disconnect. Earlier, we did actually find out that their wheelbase had lost connection and the cable had come unplugged. Essentially, their steering column briefly snapped. So that unfortunately put them down in the position currently P8 that they are fighting for. Not entirely sure if they're on the same lap fighting. Well, they've actually taken P7 and P6. Not entirely sure what's happening with the timing screens there. I think it is due to pit stops, absolutely. And we are still seeing this battle for P1 with Oratile and Ethan, and Van and Ethan. Those cars are sort of just chasing each other at this point. Oratile very calm and collected as he runs his laps around the track, and Vanna on the chase seems to be making a number of mistakes, particularly down to turn 1. So this might come down to the last two drivers, battle of the Ethans, Ethan 1 and Ethan 2, going to be fighting their way for that final stint. It's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one indeed. And 53 minutes left to go. It is getting ever closer between the top two, but they have not been able to switch it around. And I feel like this is going to come down to the pit stop strategies between these two, because evidently it's not been the easiest one for Vanna to get past in second position. So I have a feeling it's all going to change up when that pit stop strategy comes around. We're going to see Oratile and Vanna hopping into that pit box, and it's all going to come down to who can get in that pit box the cleanest way. We had a chat with Ethan McDougall a little bit earlier on, and he did mention to us that if you miss your pit box by even the slightest bit, unfortunately this game is not like ACC, where it will technically pull your car backwards and lock you into place. Unfortunately, you have to manually reverse the car and place it in the correct position. Otherwise, you will not go up on the jacks, and you will not get your car serviced with the new tires and new fuel. And so that is a delay that can be caused in the pit box that could have possibly happened to Bradley and Omar, which is why we saw such a drop in time from first position down to third with a 21-second gap. And that's how it currently runs for all the drivers. As you can see, the TGN Cape Town branch is definitely still alive, and lots of the drivers still trying to complete their stints. But 52 minutes left to go in this race.
It is interesting to see that I'm looking downstairs at the moment, and we saw Giovanni and Callum in the pit lane as well. Callum coming out in the car at the moment. Giovanni, you're watching the stream, hearing us talk about him. And we have a lot of action, particularly around Kietzo's rig, watching everyone go around. Everyone seems like they're having a good time. Nobody's fought yet, not seeing any blood on the floor. So, a lot of interesting things going down for this last hour. We are seeing that battle get a bit closer for P1 and 2. Vanna closing that gap just a bit more. He is now on the back. Oratile actually defending into the hairpin. So we're going to need to see what Vanna does over the course of this lap. We are seeing going down in now across into turn 5, going into the hairpin of turn 7. We're going to see if he's going to make a move up the inside. Oratile looks to be defending slightly. No, not at all. Vanna showing his nose slightly. Oratile running wide. Vanna's are going to maximize on that opportunity. He is now tucked into the slipstream, seeing we're going to make a move into the final corner. Seems unlikely.
Yeah, seems unlikely indeed as we move through the next corners. And Vanna was getting close there, especially through turn 10 and 11 there. Out of the haircomb, out of the haircomb, yeah, very nice. Out of the hairpin he comes, and unfortunately not enough to get ahead of Oratile and Ethan up in front. I believe before we see more first place fighting, it might happen during our interview, but we're going to go source another interviewer for the time being. And well, we might have to wait for it, because the front two are not letting us catch a break here. The issue is right here, Mike, is that they're not going to give us the break to do an interview, because I think they're going to be fighting until the end of this race. So we'll go downstairs and maybe try and find someone to interview. Mike can go find whoever he wants. I see Gio standing there if he's open, but there might be someone else who might be willing to do an interview. And that should be our final interview of the day. Maybe we will try and get the potential race winners up here as well. But obviously we already had Oratile up here, and obviously Vanna and Ethan are both staff members, so they probably won't be up here just yet. As we see the first pit stops coming in, yeah, it is Oratile and Ethan who have jumped into the box now. And I think let's maybe, never mind. Okay, we've changed it up. No, it was an overshoot. Back into the pit lane he goes there. So Oratile just missing the pit box, and now he comes in. The question is this going to work? Vanna has decided to stay out for the overcut with 15 minutes left to go in this race. And so the last drivers for the final stint probably going to be running a little bit longer here to try and make it towards the end of 50-minute total stint time that they will have to run. And we'll see how that goes. But now the question is, can Vanna pull away enough in this clean air or is he going to get stuck potentially with some back markers? He does have 7th and 8th up in front that he's going to have to manage ever so soon. And as we see Aratile and Ethan still in that pit box, obviously it is a very, very long pit stop time here. About 1 minute and 27 seconds, as you can see there on the screen. And so that is the time that the drivers lose, almost a lap and a half, basically, that they lose in that pit stop. Unfortunately, for one driver, it'll happen to the next driver because everyone eventually has to come in for that final pit stop. The drivers currently in the car cannot make it towards the end of the race on this fuel or these tires. So they will have to come in, get a driver swap, get some new fuel and new tires to make it towards the end of this race. And Bradley and Omar still sitting in 2nd position now, as it shows that Vanna and Ethan are back out on top. Obviously, Van and Ethan are on top. Sorry, I got confused there. Bradley and Omar have moved up into 2nd position, but obviously that is with the pit stop changes. As we do see their camera in the bottom. Unfortunately, that camera is delayed, so we can't see it 100% in terms of where it is. I do see it looks like Bradley is the one who's in the seat. Omar's seat is the one that's just on the bottom left-hand side of the screen where you see the head there of Bradley, as he's currently focusing up. But Liam and Eddie are also still in a fight right here, and this looks to be with 4th position behind, just up in front of them. A bit of an odd one, so 4th is just up ahead of them. So they're going to have to go an entire lap around to catch up to Liam and Eddie. But obviously Liam and Eddie, 2 drivers who are have not come in for their pit stop yet. So when the race come in for their pit stop, it means that Aratile and Ethan will climb back up the order here. As I mentioned, it is a full lap and a half lost in the pit stop. And there comes the pit stop from Vanna and Ethan. The quest is on now for Aratile and Ethan to make their way up and potentially undercut here. They went for the pit stop an entire lap earlier. Sorry, 2 laps earlier, actually. And let's see if this is going to work out for them. It means they will be on slightly worse tires coming towards the end of this race. But it also means that they can continue pushing out here in the front-hand side, and they will potentially get the undercut with the slightly warmer tires already. Remember that Vanna and Ethan will come out on cold tires and fresh tires as well that they'll need to get scrubbed on going into the next couple of corners. We'll have to wait and see how that goes for them. But there comes all the top into the pit lane. Bradley and Omar join in. Liam and Eddie also dive into the pit lane now. And this is the question. Where does Aratile and Ethan land up? They've just gone past the start-finish line, and now they head through the mid-sectors of turn 4, 5, and 6. So coming out of 6 now, up towards turn 7 they go, and out of turn 7 they coming towards turn 8, 9, and 10, which is the hairpin corner now. The others all still in the pit box. Aratile and Ethan reducing that pit time drastically as they keep on pushing on here. This is going to be the ultimate quest for this driver up in front. Aratile, or Ethan, I actually believe it's in the car right now, comes across the final corner. He is catching. Where does Bradley and Omar sit? They're still in the pit box, and there comes Aratile. He's lapped the entire grid. Well, not lapped, but he's gotten past and undercutted the entire grid. And it looks like Aratile will keep 1st position here. No, he won't actually. It looks like Vanna and Ethan have actually overcut, and they're just ahead of Aratile and Ethan. 2.9 seconds of a gap between them all, and unfortunately, it is just not worked out there for Aratile and Ethan. Vanna has pitted in a great quest there, and he's made it so that Ethan will lead this race for the last 46 minutes. How is this going to turn out? 3 seconds of a gap between the top 2 to Vanna and Ethan and Aratile and Ethan. And we'll have to see how this is going to go on. But so soon, this is all going to come to an end. 46 minutes left of racing. The pit stops are officially done and dusted here for today's racing. 20 minutes to go until 4 o'clock. 45 minutes to go until the end of this race. And this is all to play for in the top rankings here. Vanna and Ethan holding on strong here. 3.3 seconds of a gap to Aratile. Bradley and Omar just a bit further behind, and Liam and Eddie, unfortunately, are about 60 seconds behind after all the pit stop. The rest of the drivers out on track have all unfortunately dropped off quite drastically. It's +1 lap, it's +3 lap, it's plus a lot of laps here for most of the drivers as they are trying to keep themselves out on the grid. And it's just not going to be enough for them to continue in this race. Van and Ethan still up in front though. It is officially the 45-minute mark. We're probably going to head into our final 15-minute break here to get the final half an hour of racing down to the wire, and that is where it's all going to be to play for. And so we'll see you in that final half an hour. It is unfortunately a bit of a stalemate here for the time being, as all the drivers have gapped themselves around the track. So we'll see you in 15 minutes time in hopes that at the 30-minute mark we've got some action out on track. Alrighty then, and we are officially back for the final portion of the racing action. 25 minutes left on the clock, and it is all to grab. It is all up for grabs here for the drivers. Unfortunately, things have not gone the way we thought it would have. Oratile and Ethan just not able to get closer up to Van and Ethan up in first position. Bradley and Omar have also moved up into the second position slot. This was only a couple of laps ago. We were down on the floor watching this happen live, so we did see that Bradley and Omar got past, and Oratile and Ethan just a bit further behind. Apologies for not putting the Autobot on. That is my mistake. And so you've just been watching Vanner and Ethan setting some consistent lap times up in front for the past couple of past 20 minutes or so. But for the rest of the drivers, it is still the fight. The fight is indeed still on. Liam and Eddie are slowly closing in now on Oratile and Ethan as they begin to set slightly slower lap times. Oratile and Ethan were chasing onto the backside of Bradley and Omar, but unfortunately they have begun losing out now. In the past couple of laps, it was about 6/10. It's gone down to about 1.4 seconds. Gone up technically, but gone down in terms of physical grid positioning. So 1.4 seconds is the gap that Oratile and Ethan, and I believe it is Ethan bringing them home over the line here. And so the battle is going to actually be for Oratile and Ethan just to hold third position now and bring it home strong on the podium. Liam and Eddie are unfortunately 23 seconds behind. Oh, it's actually dropping a lot now, down to 20 seconds as they come across. 26, it goes back up. So a little bit weird over the timings board, but it is still going to be quite a climb for Liam and Eddie to work their way up on Oratile and Ethan. And to calculate it, there is about 23 minutes left to go, so about 22 laps left. And so Liam and Eddie are essentially going to need to set about a second and a half faster each and every lap in order to get up to the top of Oratile and Ethan. And unfortunately, that is going to be a very difficult task for them to do, because the second and a half already trying to chase behind Bradley and Omar when with all of them setting pretty good lap times is not going to be an easy feat whatsoever. So for the time being, they will remain where they currently sit. Gio and Callum a little bit further behind as well, down to 5th position they sit. Jordan and Jason have been a bit of a talking point for tonight. It seems a couple of the drivers are not too happy with the driving performance so far, and we did have a bit of a chat to Chad, we had a bit of a chat to Gio, both of them being involved in a couple of incidents there with Jordan and Jason. So the two of them seems to have gotten into a couple of scraps here tonight, and let's hope they can keep it clean for the last 22 minutes of racing. We are officially here with you until the end now, the last 22 minutes. It's a very short sprint down to the line. Max and Nick have been able to get themselves up into 8th position. Thankfully, Chad and Kitso unfortunately still down in 10th. And Jesse and Francois, the final two drivers on tonight's grid.
Alright, right, Jason, I am back. I just wanted to find out, Brad, you know what, did they get past Oratile and Ethan, or? Alright, that's just, and are they fighting back, or are they just pulling away? Like, what's happening here at the moment?
So for the time being, what I'll see, let me quickly go over to our interval. So it is 10.9 seconds from Vanna and Bradley. We will need to observe it for a bit. From what I can see, it does look like that Vanna and Ethan are still pulling away from Bradley as it currently sits. I believe it is Bradley. As we in the Cape Town cams, you can see Bradley in the bottom side of those cameras. That is Omar's rig. And so I don't think Bradley is closing in on that gap, or it's idling around the 10-second mark. But with 20 minutes left to go, it's going to be quite a hard battle to get ahead of Vanna and Ethan up in front.
Alright, that is interesting. So now we're going to see if Bradley can claw back that 10-second gap in 20 minutes. So he's got just under 21 laps to claw back 10 seconds. That is about half a second a lap. That is going to be quite a drastic sort of pull. We're going to need to hope that some of these back markers. And is that Oratile and Ethan? That is Ethan that has PSF spun off there at the final corner. That's just going to put him a bit further back. Fortunately, 4th place is quite far behind Liam and Eddie. We were just talking to them about, or they asked us if we think they have a chance, and at the time we were like, not really. But now, with that spin and the effect that it could have on the tires, we might see some sort of clawback from Liam and Eddie, because we also found out that the reason why these pit stops have been a bit inconsistent with the times, like we know that it's a 45-minute stint, but some of these drivers have been pitting significantly earlier. And we found out that it's due to the tires actually puncturing or at times exploding, where the tire literally just falls apart. And surprisingly enough, Oratile actually held Vanna back for 2 laps with a busted front left, which was quite the feat. That
is quite an interesting feat. My concern, though, is that we had quite a lot of drivers pitting at around the 50-minute mark. Now, you're talking about the stint being about 45 minutes, and some drivers not even being able to get to that 45-minute marker due to tires. So drivers who put it at the 50-minute mark means that the secondary driver who's hopped in now for the final stint has to take the car home for about 48 minutes. No, I'm getting this completely wrong. 48-minute stint. Sorry, I saw the 19 minutes and I was like, where am I getting my stats from? But it was at the 50-minute mark. So that secondary driver had to come out at around the 48-minute mark. That is 3 minutes more than the normal stint time. They're going to have to do a heap of amount of tire management in order to bring it home and not face any punctures. If we're seeing punctures coming in before the 45-minute mark, and now they've got 48 minutes to get home to the checkered flag, that's going to be a very tough battle for them, and we'll have to see if they can manage that. We do officially have our first comment, though, in our TGN virtual grandstand, and that's happening on the TGN Racing Simulators YouTube channel. And Sim Motorsports Association saying good afternoon. Good afternoon to you as well, good sir. You are joining in towards the end side of the TGN Endurance Series, round number 2 here at Tsukuba Raceway. With about 18 minutes left to go, we already progressed through about 2 hours and 40 minutes of racing. And for the time being, it is still looking pretty good up in front. But Mike, that tire wear issue is going to be an interesting one coming to the last 5 minutes of this race.
I mean, we're seeing already in these last 20 minutes, we're going to be seeing how those pit stop inconsistencies have played a have an effect on the final stints for these drivers, as we have seen Chad and Kits already taking their final pit stops. So now we're going to see if some of these drivers have to pit earlier and how the tires are going to hold up, because these drivers now have to be very careful with these tires, as it's been less about the 45-minute fuels and more about your tires, because your tires are falling off a lot faster than the fuel is leaving the tank. So some of these drivers have been holding on and doing significantly slower times for the last few laps of their stints, and others have been able to power through. Some have been taking it easier throughout the stint just to make the tires last. And well, we saw with which team was it now? Gio and Callum. So Gio and Callum had a bit of an interesting stop here. I was actually downstairs when it happened. So they actually had a puncture which forced them to pit earlier. They chose to not swap drivers, as Callum still had about 10 minutes left of his stint. So he decided to stay in the car for the last 10 minutes. They actually had to... sorry, we seem to have lost our game here. So Gio and Callum had to swap down the straight while they were driving. They had to switch drivers out of that rig, which was quite interesting to see. But we've lost our game. We're trying to get things connected here at the moment. We've got the camera on the Joburg Center at the moment. We do have other customers racing other games here as well. Like we had somebody doing some awesome drifts out in one of the red rigs earlier, and we have a couple people down there doing Formula One. As you can see, driving Ferraris. We know a team there supporting. And we got a number of the drivers seeing how the other teams are performing, some of the drivers watching their leaders, seeing what they're doing to pull quite to the gap and some sort of times. Everyone looking for some sort of advantage, whether it... thankfully, nobody going to the extent of pulling their competitor's wheel or slamming their brake pedal for them. Thankfully, things haven't gone that far. And one thing we've also heard is the sort of rivalry between the Joburg and Cape Town branch. Some of these drivers having a number of disagreements over the past months, and Tristan actually made the joke about getting them all into one cent and having to lay out boxing gloves.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be a pretty sight, having all of them in one center. I know Chad said some pretty non-talkable items on the stream downstairs that he'd love to do to the Cape Town guys, but we'll leave that to Chad and the Cape Town guys. You know, you can contact Chad directly. Here's his number. No, I'm kidding. But I believe he's going down to Cape Town in a bit, so he can go sort out his own stuff. We're just here to talk over this amazing endurance series. But yeah, if we had to put them all into one room, that would be quite an interesting shouting match, if you have to ask me. It may get further escalate past the shouting match, and then the commentators are no longer involved. We go home, we go grab some Burger King or something else, and we are not related to it at all. But fortunately, they are in two completely different centers, about 1,200 kilometers away from each other. So for now, they can't do any permanent damage other than shout at each other over the microphone. But even that, there's not much of that gets to go on here at TGN Racing Simulators Endurance Series. But back to the racing action we go. Unfortunately, for the time being, we are just going to be talking about the general things of this endurance series. We don't have that much action out on track anymore. Most of the drivers have begun to distance themselves from each other. We can see it. Vanna and Ethan have completely pulled away. It is 9 seconds of a gap. Well, actually, it was 10.5. So Bradley and Omar are somewhat pulling it back, but they're not doing it fast enough before the end of this race. And we do see that the map is currently missing. There she is right there. We've popped her back on so that we can see the track map. And for the time being, there's only about 7 or so Smarties going around Tsukuba for the remainder of this race. But into the last 15 minutes of racing now. 14 minutes to go on the clock before things happen. And there comes our pit stop with the drivers who are just not able to make it to the end. Jordan and Jason come into the pit now at the 13-minute marker.
One thing I'm excited to see, and I know this is there's going to be a little bit insensitive, but I am curious to see what the burst tire would look like, or how it would affect the car that we see here. Because I know the drivers say that they feel it almost immediately when the tire goes, which obviously that makes a lot of sense considering you're trying to turn and you no longer have a tire to turn with. So, but I'm excited to see if something that does happen and how it would affect the current state of the race, because as Tristan mentioned, everyone sort of had a bit of a gap. We don't really have a close battle here at the moment. Everyone's just trying to make it through to the end. They're at that stage where it's like, cool, we just want nothing to happen to us. We just want to make it to the end, particularly for our drivers in the top 3. That podium position is quite an incredible feeling, particularly if you have your first one, which I do believe Ethan, driving with Aratilia, might actually experience his first podium today. I'm not entirely sure, but we will have to find that out.
I think Bradley as well. Bradley, I know, is just a customer at the TGN branch in Cape Town. I don't know if he has gotten himself a podium yet, whether it's in the Endurance Series previous round. Obviously, we weren't here for that one. Or even in the other series that are provided here by TGN. So, 2 potential young guys who are here to get their win on, and obviously that's Ethan in the 3rd position slot. He's racing with Aratilia, like Michael mentioned, and Bradley, who's racing with Omar in 2nd. We then see Gio and Callum obviously overtaking another driver. Unfortunately, it's not for position. It's they are passing Mr. Jesse and Francois, who seem to just be limping at home at this stage. And where did trying to look where Jason and Jordan came out? There they are over there. So they've just come out of their pit stop and obviously had to put just due to not having enough left in the tank, or possibly not enough tread left on those tires to make it towards the end. As we mentioned, from speaking to the drivers, that's actually been the primary issue in today's race, is those tires just not being able to keep the tread on. And I mean, I'm with you. I know it's bad, but I'd love to see a tire explode live on stream. I want to see, does the Polo Super Cup, does the Polo Super Cup bounce when the tire explodes? Like, is there enough implosion force for it to leap off the floor? I don't know. Maybe we must ask Aratilia when we go down there again. But I mean, obviously we know what a deflated tire looks like. The car kind of leans to one side where the tire has been deflated or punctured, and we'll have to see how that goes. I have a feeling we might have a couple of stray drivers here. For example, here comes Ashwin and Anwar. They know they can't make it to the end of this race, right? They're coming into the pit lane now. The tires are obviously shot, or the fuel tank is empty, and they're coming in. I have a feeling we're going to have a couple of Johnny Bravo drivers here today who will still have a little bit left in the tank to get them home, but they don't have the tires to get them home, and they're going to try and push their luck. We might see a couple of drivers here in the final dire moments who just won't have enough to make it over the checkered flag.
Yeah, like so far we've heard of one example where it was just one tire, particularly the front left. I want to see what happens if it's where multiple tires. Would this car just be riding on the rims and going incredibly steady? Because these cars run awfully low and with very low profile tires, so it is a bit difficult to spot as is if the tires are inflated or not. And it's not like we'll just see the car slam into the ground and just go nowhere. But we do see our leader Van and Ethan just getting past the back marker number 10. I honestly hoped a little bit that back marker would put up a bit more of a fight, allowing our second base driver Badley and Omar to catch up just a little bit and have one sort of final shootout to the end. That would be very exciting to see, as you encounter that fairly often in sim racing where you're approaching the end of a very long race and you've got a couple of the drivers fighting for that top spot. It is extremely stressful, but it is incredible to watch as people sort of throw everything out the window. They're all into that final sort of, into those last few minutes where they take any opportunity possible, and that can greatly shake up the results.
just slightly confused from what I'm seeing here on the metrics. Chad and Kitso, it says that they're 2.3 seconds behind Max and Nick. And that doesn't necessarily make sense, because if you see Max and Nick and you can see the swap on the timing on the map on the top, you can see that Max and Nick are just coming out of the hairpin of turn number 11. Chad and Kitso are still in the second sector, so I'm not too sure where they're gaining that time. You can see it is dropping quite drastically. It almost looks like they're chasing the car in front right now, and the car in front of them is actually Vanner and Ethan, who are just up in front. No, it's not. There's Vanner and Ethan, and just behind Vanner and Ethan is Chad and Kitso. So I'm not too sure where the 1.6 seconds is coming from. Michael says he might know why, but 8 minutes left to go on the clock, and let's hope that we see some change before the end of this race.
It would seem Gio and Callum have a bit of a problem, as they are also now boxing. I am aware that they had to box earlier in their stint just due to, we have a car off there in the distance that is Jesse and Francois. Back to Gio and Callum, they had to box earlier due to their tyre going bang bang, so they had to come into the box for a fresh set. They seem to just change their tyres as they came out relatively quickly, where most of the pit stop is just fueling the car. So they seem to come out still in 5th place, 6th being quite a distance away, so they have officially secured that 5th position spot. 4th is also a bit of a to fight for, but let's hope that Chad and Kitso, and yes, that gap is to the car ahead. We have seen it sometimes where the game can miscalculate things apparently, so we do see that they are going to be chasing down the leaders. Now let's hope for a bit of a fight, allowing Bradley and Omar to catch up. They have brought that gap down a little bit more, so it was 10 seconds at 20 minutes, it is now 7 seconds at 7 minutes. That gap's going to update when they cross the line. Ethan seems to just be allowing Chad and Kitzel through. Now let's see if he can put up a bit more of a fight.
Yeah, let's hope a bit more of a fight can come from them. And there we go. There it officially updates. Chad and Kitso up now even 99 seconds behind. I don't know how up that. There we go. It's dropping drastically. I would say from what I can see on the track map, it's going to be about a 25-second gap to Max and Nick up in front. And because they're just coming through, I believe, no, that might be the wrong driver. Max and Nick are just at the back of the straight. So no, that's probably going to be about a 15 to 20-second gap. And Max and Nick obviously got one of the blue cars behind them. Not too sure who that is trailing behind them. I don't think it's for position, but it is indeed Liam and Eddie in their teal blue Polo Super Cup. And they keep on going around now. And Liam and Eddie, again, like we've mentioned, have been two of the most consistent drivers out on track today. No spins, no pit stop inconsistencies, just getting the car home. And looks like they're going to be able to do it. 6 minutes left on the clock. They are still pushing on strong there behind one of the back markers as they continue to go on strong. But unfortunately for our top runners, 170 laps down, it looks like things are pretty fixated in where they will stand. Gio and Callum come out, and it looks like they maintain 5th position. They don't lose anything, so they stay exactly where they lie. Bradley, Omar, they still sit in 2nd. My question is, when are they going to come in? The tire age, I don't know if that's accurate. 10 laps cannot be accurate, I don't think. That would mean only 10 minutes out on the tires. And so the rest of the drivers still just trying to nurse it home. 6 minutes left, though. 6 laps to go, technically, in this car. And that is it. And then that officially rounds off round number 2 here of the TGN Endurance Series.
Yeah, we are going to get close in that last 6 minutes. And, I mean, Bradley and Omar clearly giving it their all, trying to chase down Vanna and Ethan. So we could possibly have a last lap shootout, but at this point I think it's going to be coming down to who can actually hold on to the tires the longest, because if Ethan were to have some sort of blowout and Bradley and Omar not so much, in fact I actually think Bradley and Omar are at a higher risk here, because they pitted before the car of Van and Ethan, so they are actually risking their car a lot more by pushing it so hard, trying to bring that gap down, because they might be probably the highest risk at the moment on track to have that sort of puncture on the car. So we're just going to need to keep an eye out for that. But we're seeing that at the moment, the results are kind of set in stone unless there would be something drastic to change up.
Yeah, that's why I was hoping for maybe a pit stop or two to come in play here, because without the pit, yeah, there we go. Liam and Eddie have come into the pit box. They can't make it towards the end. I'm hoping it happens to the top runners, because at the time being, like Michael says, there isn't much going on at the top here in terms of change. Obviously, Aratilia and Ethan 32 seconds down. And if Bradley and Omar need to pit here, Artile is only 34 seconds behind, right? And if Artile and Ethan don't need to pit, that is well within the distance to overtake. That is a high battle, though, coming out from Liam and Eddie. They just come out of the pit lane now, and they lose out to Gio and Callum. So finally, we have something to talk about, as there is indeed a battle out on track, and it is the battle for 4th position. Gio and Callum come out just ahead of Liam and Eddie coming into this final 4 minutes. It is 4 laps to go. What can Liam and Eddie do to reclaim 4th position here? This is going to be their push of their lifetimes as they continue to go around the track here. And I really do hope that they're able to do something and not let Gio and Callum run away, which looks like is currently happening. And from the looks of it, I don't know who's in the car for Liam and Eddie. I think it might be Eddie. And as last time I saw, it was indeed Liam. It's currently Liam, actually. So Liam in the car over there, and then Gio in that 4th position car as it stands. Bradley and Omar still catching up. There comes the pit. The 2nd position runners come into the pit lane. They cannot make it to the end. 3rd position of Oratile and Ethan come around the turn 10 and 11 hairpin now. The drivers just up ahead have come into the pit lane due to... What? Did they come into the pit lane? I saw the pit marker. Did they stay out? They stayed out.
No. They came out.
They came out already. Okay, so bit of an interesting one coming from those drivers. And Bradley and Omar still sitting in 2nd position. That was a very quick pit stop then from Bradley and Omar, because how long were they in the pit lane? The distance is still 36 seconds. Oratile also comes into the pit lane now.
So now let's see where Gio and Callum end up, as they have only just hit their pit box. P4 is now is on the back straight, coming into the final corner very shortly. So we're going to need to see how this podium pit stop goes on. We have seen the pit stops have been very short. However, it is going to be very close, with Gio and Callum rounding the final corner. Exiting the pit lane now is Aratila and Ethan. Bear in mind, they are coming out on cold tires, whereas Gio and Callum have been on their stint for 2 laps so far. Their tires are up to temperature and ready to race. So we're going to see how this battle is going to heat up. And now this is a very interesting last 3 minutes coming in this race. That gap is slowly coming down. That car is getting closer.
Oh, someone's off. Sorry about that. Someone's off in the background. I'm not too sure who that was. I don't know if it was one of the back markers, but someone lost it at the first hairpin. And it looks like it might be where the battle for 2nd is. It's the driver just behind 2nd. It's the purple car flashing and beaming. And so that's Bradley and Omar. Is that Jordan and Jason just behind? Indeed it is. So Jordan and Jason looks like they just went off there at that previous corner. And now they're tailing behind Omar. The gap is coming down drastically between Aratile. Someone is blowing the lawn. It is Omar. For some reason, all the way on the right-hand side. Got to go jump up to the leaders, though, because this is a lot more important. Between 3rd and 4th position, it is Aratile and Ethan who hold it up in 3rd position. Just behind is Gio and Callum. And the question is, like Michael says, is that Gio and Callum are on much warmer, much more race-ready tires compared to Aratile. He'll be nice and warmed up now, though. He's done 1 lap, but look at how close it is. Coming down to the final minute. This is the battle for the final spot of the podium. This is important for Ethan in that 3rd position spot. It could be his first podium here at the TGN Racing Center, or it could be all taken away by Gio and Callum, and I believe Callum is also a new driver. So there's 2 drivers up for grabs here. A bit of a break lock there from Aratile and Ethan. This is getting very close. Gio and Callum just behind, and we can see the cockpit cam is getting closer and closer, but under 1 minute left of this race now, and things are getting extremely close between the 2 of them. There is a lot of nail biting happening in this commentary box, as it is all to play for in this final 40 seconds.
We are on the final lap of the TGN Endurance Series, and this battle for 3rd, we are going to stick with this for as long as we can, and a bit of contact into turn 1 from Gio riding up the rear of Aratile there. We are going to see, is it going to be a move made into the first hairpin, or are they going to wait for the 2nd hairpin, where they have a better opportunity down the straight? They choose the latter option. Gio playing the patient game, seeing if he can get a bit closer into the turn 10 hairpin, now crossing into turn 7, still right on the rear of, I'm not entirely sure who's driving that 3rd place car, but we are about to see, coming into the hairpin, they go defensive. Giovanni trying to go for the undercut here on Aratile. It's Ethan actually driving that 3rd place car. It is going to come down to 1 final corner, and he moves to the inside. Giovanni has the inside line, moving into the final corner. We're going to see who's going to be braver on the brakes. Small bit of contact. Giovanni takes 3rd place. Are they going to be able to switch it back across the line? It's going to be close. Giovanni and Callum take that third place, although it says second. That was an incredibly close battle. Very well done to Giovanni and Callum.
My word, what a final battle down to the line. Just enough on the inside line for Gio and Callum to sacrifice it and take it on the inside line. Vanna and Ethan will take the win. There goes Jordan and Jason. The tomfoolery continues even after the line. And Vanna and Ethan take the race win. But what a great final podium grab from Gio and Callum. Oratile and Ethan just losing out on the final line. You can see the disappointment. They're parked in the middle of the track. I don't think they're very happy with that one. But that is racing, and what a great race we had towards the end. This is how endurance racing goes. It gets a little bit slow in the middle, and then the end, it all collapses down. A final battle for the final podium spot. Callum will be the newest rookie to land up in a podium at the TGN Racing Center here in Johannesburg. But that is officially it for the racing here. We'll go to the wide shot cam and have a look. There you can see the celebrations from the drivers. Oratile talking to Ethan and just reassuring him that all is good, or he's shouting at him, one of the two. we don't know. You could be upset about that one, but I mean, Mike, your thoughts, man. What an excellent race we had here for round number 2.
I mean, absolutely. The race started and ended with the exact same excitement. We were literally just talking about in the last 10 minutes how things were looking We saw quite a big gap, and then the pit stops came in. Everyone having to do that final stop, which brought everyone so close together. And we had that insane battle at the end. We weren't even focused on the leaders, unfortunately, at the time, because our eyes were just locked into that battle for third place. And very well done to Giovanni and Callum for coming in at third place. That was incredibly close. Very unfortunate for RT and Ethan for just barely holding that position off. But the big congratulations, however, goes to the staff members, Vanna and Ethan, for winning round 2 of the TGN Endurance Series here at Tsukuba International. Very well done to them, and we are switching over to end off our live stream.
Indeed, that is officially it. The racing is done and dusted. You will all be missed in the virtual grandstand, and just want to say thank you to everybody who joined us here today, whether you joined on the YouTube channel or the Facebook channel. We are hoping for the next Endurance Series, which will be the April one. We are really hoping that we will be able to get the TikTok live stream up and running. We couldn't get it up and running just as of yet, but we're hoping to get a stream key shortly, and then we will be live on TikTok, because we know that's a very popular platform for all of our TGN viewers and possibly all of our customers. But that is officially it for the racing here today. Thank you guys so much for joining us for round number 2 of the TGN Endurance Series at Tsukuba. We head to round number 3. That'll be the first Sunday of April. I don't know the exact Sunday, whichever that is, but it's pretty easy to go and check. It is the first Sunday of the month of April. And I think that's also going to be an absolutely interesting one of note. Don't forget, we've got loads of other series and opportunities to get involved here at TGN Racing Simulators. We've mentioned it a bunch tonight, but we'll mention it again. There's Wednesday nights, there's Thursday nights, there's Friday, there's Saturday, and there's Sunday. Loads and loads of stuff happening every single week. You do not want to miss it. My name has been Tristan Earps, joined in the commentary box here for the Endurance Series by Michael Donaldson. We'll see you next time around, and hope you have an excellent day further.